I have a suite at the end of the world. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 726, Landing in Yizhou. The order has set off, and the destroyer cruising in the waters near Wanhei City has returned. Before returning to the present world, Jiang Chen and Sun Jiao went to the 6th district and inspected the industrial development of the 6th district under the reception of a group of officials. Tank shells were lined up outside the military factory. Walking side by side with Sun Jiao in the industrial park of the 6th district, Jiang Chen looked at the workers working on the production line. Compared with the Xinma special district in the present world, this industrial park and the end of the world can only be described as pocket-sized. Due to population factors, it is more than 100 times more difficult to develop industry in this wasteland than in the present world. Even if the technological content of the equipment coming off the production line here is not as good as that in the present world, the gap in production capacity is difficult to simply overcome. The workers of future heavy industry are more than 10 times the total number of workers in NAC. Sometimes Jiang Chen couldn't help but think how nice it would be if some of the workers in the present world were evenly distributed here. Of course, he was just thinking about it. Linling's research on bringing people through time had not made any progress, so much so that she was nicknamed Hamster Killer by Sun Jiao. Every time the experimenter was a hamster, and these poor hamsters, without exception, died an untimely death. Seeing a power armor being transported out of the factory by an engineering vehicle, Jiang Chen asked Sun Jiao beside him, "How many power armors do we have?" "A total of 325, my Lord Marshal." Sun Jiao smiled mischievously. From the arc of her mouth, it is obvious that she, the Marshal's wife, is also very satisfied and proud of the current situation of NAC. So many? Jiang Chen's expression was a little surprised. According to the pre-station military knowledge that Han Junhe popularized to him, these more than 300 power armors are enough to arm 3 mechanized infantry battalions. He still remembered that Zhao Chenwu had told him a year ago that the monthly output of power armor was at most 10 units, and this was when the military factory was running at full capacity. What happened to increase the production capacity of power armor so much? As if she saw the confusion in Jiang Chen's eyes, Sun Jiao smiled and answered the question for him. "It seems that your memory is not very good. Have you forgotten that we also included Han Cheng in our sphere of influence during the last expedition? With the opening of the airship transport route, many downstream processes have been outsourced to factories in Hezhang City. In addition, many survivors from Han Cheng have immigrated to Wanhei City. The production capacity of the 6th district is no longer the level it was a few months ago. Is that so?" Jiang Chen smiled with relief and nodded. The two continued to walk forward along this street, lined with factories and small workshops. Speaking of which, it's almost the new year. Yes, the new year of 2018. It feels like time has passed so quickly. Jiang Chen sighed. Then, are you going to celebrate the new year here this year? Facing Sun Jiao's hopeful eyes, Jiang Chen really couldn't think of any words to refuse. Last year's New Year, he celebrated it in the present world. This year he will celebrate it in the end of the world. Yes. Jiang Chen smiled and nodded. Great. Yao will definitely be looking forward to it. Aren't you the one who's looking forward to it the most? Jiang Chen said jokingly. As for me, of course I'm looking forward to it too. The crescent-shaped eyebrows and the curled corners of her mouth have already shown Sun Jiao's mood on her face. Seeing her happy look, Jiang Chen also curled the corners of his mouth and quickened his pace to keep up with her joyful pace. The inspection work was completed before dark, and the two took a helicopter back to the villa. In the helicopter, Jiang Chen suddenly sighed and said, "I always feel a little regretful today." "Regret? I feel quite happy." Sun Jiao pursed her lips in dissatisfaction, not understanding why Jiang Chen suddenly said this. "I was wandering around the factory all day and didn't take you to the commercial street." Sun Jiao's cheeks flushed and she rolled her eyes at Jiang Chen. "Can you finish your words at once?" Back to the fishbone base, Jiang Chen went to the marshal's office in the community center. When he arrived at the office, Han Junho was standing next to the holographic map, and the map was locked on the location of Yizhao Island, marking this small green area in the north of the island. Has the expeditionary force arrived? Han Junho nodded. The order has dropped anchor in the northern part of Iju Island, and 200 expeditionary forces have landed in Taipei. According to the information provided by Li Wang, the supply station is under construction, and he is currently leading 200 expeditionary forces to search the nearby area. Jiang Chen nodded and asked, "What is the attitude of the local survivors?" "They are very wary of outsiders like us, but they have not taken any hostile actions for the time being." "Very good. It seems that Li Wang has done a good job." Jiang Chen's mouth curled up with a smile. When the supply station is established, the second supply boat can be on the road to deliver supplies and reinforcement to this batch of vanguard troops. By bringing Aishu Island under control, it can be used as a springboard to radiate the influence of NAC to southern Fujian and Southeast Asia and expand the trade route to further places. After all, it is not as convenient in Tokyo as in the new country. Disappearing for a long time is a bit troublesome in various senses, so Jiang Chen did not stay in the end of the world for a long time this time. After dealing with the trivial matters in the end of the world, he returned to the present world. With the lifting of the virus crisis, colleges and universities in Tokyo have resumed classes one after another. Chinatsu, who is still studying at Waseda University, naturally received an email from the school about resuming classes. In the past, when there was no one in the villa, she just came here regularly to clean the room. But now that the villa has an owner, she naturally can't run back and forth like before. After some consideration, she found Jiang Chen and asked him for his advice. If Jiang Chen needed her to stay in the villa all the time, to take care of his daily life, she could apply to drop out of school and become his full-time maid. However, Jiang Chen rejected her proposal and told her to study hard. She could wait until she finished college to become a full-time maid. Anyway, he would have to go back to Singapore in a while, and he would not come to Tokyo often, unless there was something special. In order to facilitate her to run back and forth, Jiang Chen simply provided her with a car. The happy little maid kissed him on the face. However, Jiang Chen did not react much. Instead, Chinatsu herself was pinching the hem of her maid's skirt and her heart was beating for a long time because of her out-of-line behavior. Unlike the usual image of Japanese businessmen with big bellies and bald foreheads, Jiang Chen's figure is not so well built, but his muscles can definitely be called well proportioned. He is capable and looks a bit handsome. Chinatsu is still full of good feelings for this master. Seeing Kyangsha's blushing face, Jiang Chen sometimes couldn't help but think evilly, why not just eat this little white rabbit someday? The shy, curious, and passionate gaze always teased him. But just when he was about to slowly taste it, news came from Futureman Technology that the development of the virtual reality mall was finally completed. It seems that there is no chance to taste it slowly. Then he can only wolf it down. Chapter 727 Rustor is online. In the Beledweyne region of Somalia, after a half-month military operation, NATO successfully captured the Beledweyne warlord-controlled area. At the same time, under pressure from all sides, the United Nations finally issued a controversial document. Zombies are defined as people who died unnatural deaths, allowing the armies of various countries to hunt zombies. Interestingly, when discussing this issue, many countries stubbornly voted against it, and the reasons were all kinds of strange. For example, the reason why France voted against it was that there was no death penalty in the country, so it would not vote in favor of the death penalty resolution. India was even more bizarre, and the reason for voting against it was that they believed that the living dead were servants of Lord Shiva. But in any case, even if it was controversial, this document that should have been passed long ago was finally passed with the efforts of all parties. For the infected area on the border between Somalia and Ethiopia, NATO sent 2 tank companies to clear the zombies in the infected area with the help of drones. At the same time, far away on the other side of the earth in Tokyo, Japan, the self-defense forces and the US military stationed in Japan also began to enter the blocked Shinagawa district to clear the zombies entrenched in it. The vaccines launched by 11 pharmaceutical companies around the world that cooperated with Future Human Biology have been fully launched on the market. It is expected that in the next 4 months, they will be enough to popularize them in major countries around the world. According to the patent fee of $1.50 per vaccine, future human biology is expected to earn $5.7 billion in the next 4 months. This is almost equivalent to the net profit of future human biology in 4 years. However, as a price, the release of technology licensing means overdrawing future human biology's profit potential in the T-virus vaccine. After all, other pharmaceutical companies have an advantage in production scale. Even if the cost is $1.50 more expensive in patent fees, this cost can be fully filled from other places. In the past few days in Tokyo, Jiang Chen directed the professional managers poached from the headhunting company to form a professional real estate management team to manage the $11 billion real estate he acquired in Tokyo, responsible for the inspection and maintenance of buildings and the leasing of shops. At Tokyo International Airport, Jiang reluctantly sent Jiang Chen on the plane. The day before leaving Tokyo, Jiang Chen finally stretched out his claws to her in a maid outfit. At first she half-heartedly resisted, but soon she obediently lay on Jiang Chen, mumbling incoherent words. Perhaps it was because the pain of losing her virginity was unforgettable, or perhaps it was because of some other reason. After that night, Jiang Chen always felt that there was a different kind of brilliance in her eyes when she looked at him. Will the master come here again? Jiang buried her head and whispered, occasionally. Then, when I graduate, can I go to Sun Jiao to find you? Of course. Smiling and rubbing her head, Jiang Chen didn't say too many goodbye words, turned around and boarded the Gulfstream G650 private jet at the airport. With the girl's eyes, the plane disappeared into the distant sky. Not long after Jiang Chen returned to Sun Jiao, Future Man Technology and many e-commerce companies such as Amazon, eBay, Taobao, and JD.com simultaneously published an announcement on their official websites. Black technology is coming. Restore is online. You can go shopping without leaving home. At the same time, the Phantom helmet also ushered in the second system update. After the update, an application management program was added to the menu interface. Just like Apple's App Store and Android's Android Market, the Phantom helmet will also be open to users for self-download. However, for now, although the Future Group has announced VR program development tools and provided server rental services to the outside world, no company has made any decent software that can reflect the advantages of the VR platform. They are all studying how to transplant their company's existing applications to the VR platform. So for now, in this application management program, in addition to the web browser, there are only 2 applications lying. One is a god-level continent, and the other is a newly launched virtual reality online shopping platform Restore. The newly launched Restore currently has 2 modes. One is a simple mode that combines planes and VR images. Users can search for items more, just like online shopping, and search for the products they want in the shortest time. The only difference is that the searched items can be directly held in your hands, and the searched clothes can be directly worn on your body. The other mode is the virtual mall mode. After entering this mode, users will appear in a virtual street designed by Futureman Technology with reference to famous commercial streets such as New York's Times Square. The goods and decorations in the store are randomly processed according to a certain algorithm, allowing users to experience the fun of random encounters with goods with friends. According to the news released by Futureman Technology, there are 7 e-commerce companies in the world that have joined Restore. On the first day of Restore's launch, it gathered boutique stores of 7 e-commerce companies with a total of 800,000 items, which can be said to be a strong loop. So many users experience the joy of VR shopping on the first day of Restore's launch. While sales continue to rise, this powerful Restore has also received unanimous praise from users. I have received the new skirt I bought. It's so surprising. It's exactly the same as what I saw in Restore. I used to be reluctant to buy expensive clothes online. Not only do they not fit me, but the effect of wearing them after buying them is completely different from that of the models. Now, I can try them on in a VR environment and find clothes that really suit me before paying. It's crazy. How did Futureman Technology do it? It's a pity that there is no tasting function. It would be great if the food could restore the taste so that I can eat my fill in the virtual mall. If I can eat my fill in the virtual world, oh my god, my wallet. Why did I spend so much money? Woohoo. Due to technical reasons, VR images of goods are currently only produced by Futureman Technology, so the images of these 600,000 goods are randomly sampled by Futureman from the goods that apply for the store, and then sent to the Futureman Technology headquarters in Xingguo for scanning with special equipment to produce VR images with high restoration. As for the charge for the production of VR images of goods, Jiang Chen did not cheat them and charged them according to the fee of $1,000 per item. And for the goods logged into the VR mall, a data management fee of $10 per month is charged. Compared with the income these stores can get from the store, this investment is definitely worth it. Phantom Helmet has nearly 1 billion active users worldwide, and the store, as one of the only two applications, has a strong exposure rate. With such a huge amount of traffic, let alone the $1,000 scanning fee and $10 management fee, even if the price is doubled, there are still shops willing to move in. In addition, advertising push and other fees are calculated separately, and the price is not cheap. If the store is recommended on the store homepage, the store's revenue for the day will be shared with Future Technology. Even though the price is a bit high, there is still an endless stream of people applying for the recommendation position. And these fees, together with the data management fee, will be the two main profit channels for Restore. Some commentators have analyzed that the launch of Restore may bring a new round of cold winter for physical store sales. For example, the British Observer Daily has deeply analyzed this issue. We were optimistic that online shopping would never replace physical stores, and at most it would affect the consumption habits of some people. Physical stores have advantages that online shopping cannot replace, such as being able to intuitively touch the products you want to buy, such as the fun of shopping itself, which are all things that online shopping cannot provide. But now, Restore seems to have done everything that online shopping could not do before. Perhaps this will be a beginning to completely rewrite the world's retail landscape. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 728, Transaction Volume Miracle. The relationship between major e-commerce companies and Restore is like that between chain stores and shopping malls. From payment to logistics, these traditional e-commerce companies are responsible for providing services, while Restore only provides a window. The relationship between the two parties is more like a kind of interdependence. In fact, Jiang Chen had considered starting from scratch before leaving behind those old e-commerce companies, taking care of a series of links from payment to logistics, and building Futureman Technology's own shopping platform. However, after discussing with Jiao, he gave up this plan. Futureman Technology builds rockets, but there is no need to polish every screw carefully. In the Futureman building on Koro Island, Jiao, wearing a capable all outfit, stood in front of Jiang Chen's desk and reported on the situation of Restore. From the excitement faintly revealed under her serious face, Jiang Chen could already feel how gratifying the results of this VR plus E-COMMERCE plan that had been brewing for more than half a year were. According to the feedback from the North American branch, in the first week of Restore's launch, Amazon's total shopping transaction volume increased by 18%, and the Restore platform accounted for 40% of this week's transaction volume. eBay's transaction volume also increased by 13%. The two e-commerce companies immediately proposed additional cooperation agreements to us, hoping that we can relax product review and speed up the speed of shops entering virtual reality. Jiang Chen leaned back in his chair comfortably. What about China? Jiao's mouth curled up a smile and continued. Taobao's transaction volume increased by 28% compared to last week, and JD.com's 34%. Don't underestimate this 28% increase. Although it includes many factors such as natural growth and online marketing, the entire sales base is very large. Take Taobao alone. The transaction volume of Taobao in 2015 was 3 trillion. And since the past 10 years, it has maintained an increase of more than 60% year by year. Although the growth rate has slowed down, according to the transaction volume data released by Bao in 2017, the transaction volume still exceeded 4 trillion. Now that Vrastor has suddenly emerged, Bao's transaction volume is expected to exceed 5 trillion this year. It's just like a money printing machine. Jiang Chen exclaimed. I think so too. Xiao nodded in agreement. Do you know how much money we made on Vrastor last week? How much? Jiang Chen asked with interest. 1.2 billion. Hearing this number, he was stunned at the time. However, Xiao seemed to think that this number was not shocking enough, so she added, 1.2 billion US dollars. After recovering from the shock, Jiang Chen smiled and touched his nose with an embarrassed smile. If you didn't say it, I would have thought it was Vietnamese dong. 1.2 billion in a week. This is more than just a money printing machine. Money printing machines don't print so fast. What's even more shocking is that this 1.2 billion is still after tax income. Although the scanning fee of 1 million items contributed more than half of the profit, the figure of 1.2 billion still shocked Jiang Chen. You know, Alibaba's net profit is only more than 7 billion a year, which is already ranked among the top in the global e-commerce. And Future Group's Vrastor only took a week to earn the performance that Alibaba needs a quarter to complete. What will happen if Vrastor grows up? To celebrate this victory, Jiang Chen gave each of the more than 300 employees of the Vrastor project team a big red envelope and took them to a celebration party on the hot spring island. From beginning to end, this Vrastor was independently developed by these technicians in the world using the development tools provided by Jiang Chen. For Future Group, this is undoubtedly a big step towards technological independence. For now, in the entire Future Group, only Future Technology has achieved this. The first reaction of vested interests to new things is rejection. The second reaction is how to stop them. And the third reaction is to think about how to adapt to the trend of the times and make changes. However, when they start to think about change, they are 3 steps behind the times and can only be eliminated by the times helplessly. Bentonville, Arkansas, the United States, is the headquarters of Walmart, the world's largest retailer. This legendary retail company has a nearly legendary history of success. When Fortune magazine released the 2007 list of the world's top 500 companies, Walmart topped the list with a turnover of $351.139 billion US dollars, winning this honor for 6 consecutive years. When Fortune magazine began to select the world's top 500 companies in 1955, Walmart was just a mom and pop store in the small town of Bentonville. At this moment, at the Walmart headquarters, the board of directors held an emergency meeting to discuss how to deal with the impact of Vrastor on the retail industry. Which idiot rejected Futureman Technologies' proposal? We could have taken advantage of Vrastor. It was the board's vote. Mr. Cathro, CEO Macmillan stood up and responded to the director who accused him. Oh, so you mean that everyone here is an idiot? Don't get me wrong, I definitely don't mean that, Mr. Cathro. Unless you agree with this yourself. You. The sound of knocking on the table forcibly broke the noise on the conference table. The chairman, Robson Walton, who was sitting at the head of the conference table, stopped knocking on the table with his knuckles and glanced at the two with his cloudy but sharp eyes. Compared to arguing, we have more important things to do, don't we? The elderly head of the Walton family has a high prestige in the board of directors. When he saw old Walton speak, the directors looked at each other and quickly stopped the meaningless quarrel. Macmillan spread his hands and opened his mouth, but in the end he said nothing and sat back obediently. Yes, Walmart once rejected Futureman Technology. Walmart also operates its own e-commerce website, and its scale ranks among the top 3 in the United States. However, half a year ago, they did not accept the VR plus E-COMMERCE concept proposed by Futureman Technology. The reason is simple. Walmart has many advantages. It can connect its huge physical retail stores and online businesses to provide customers with a full range of services for shopping, so there is no need to use the VR platform at all. No American will feel unfamiliar with the goods on Walmart's shelves. In addition, if Walmart supermarkets appear on the virtual reality platform, it will definitely have a greater impact on the sales of Walmart's physical stores. And the facts have proved that this decision is wrong. Whether they are willing to accept it or not, the sales of Walmart's physical stores will be affected by Vrastore, and refusing to stay in Vrastore has also made their market share on the e-commerce platform divided by Amazon and eBay. We were originally at a disadvantage when facing Amazon, but now Vrastore has pushed us to the bottom. Not only Amazon, but eBay is trying to distance themselves from us. A director shook his head and said, "It's not too late to make up for it now. I will go to Singapore in person, and I will ask my secretary to book a flight ticket for tomorrow." Macmillan said, "Not too late. Even if we change our mind now and ask Futureman Technology to let us join Vrastore, do you think we can immediately get on the virtual reality platform?" Casero, who had argued with him before, said sarcastically, "It took more than half a year to scan 800,000 items. If we joined now, I don't know how many stores are waiting in line. Maybe by this time next year, Walmart's products will appear on the shelves of Vrastore. Others can't put their partners aside and let you, a latecomer, jump the queue, right? I will convince him," Macmillan said seriously. Casero was about to make a few sarcastic remarks, but the chairman, Mr. Walton, did not give him a chance to speak and forcibly interrupted his speech. "No need to book a ticket. I will lend you my plane. You don't have to wait until tomorrow. You can go today." Holding his breath, Macmillan nodded seriously. "Yes. Today's professional course exam. I ask for a monthly ticket to bless you CAC, chapter 729 in exchange. How are you doing in Los Angeles?" "Not bad. I'm going back to Wanghai tomorrow." "So soon? Have you finished filming?" "Today's Koro Island is as sunny as ever." Jiang Chen was lazily talking on the phone with Liu Yao, who was far away on the other side of the earth, leaning on the beach chair. Aisha, wearing a bikini, brought him a cold drink, leaned over and kissed him on the forehead, and then ran to the beach. "It was finished a long time ago. It was only a 2-minute scene, and I got a box lunch at the end." Liu Yao stuck out her tongue and said in a coquettish voice, "For a minor role, 2 minutes of scenes is already enough." Of course, she didn't have any complaints, but habitually acted like a spoiled child to Jiang Chen on the phone. "Are you going to come to my house to watch a movie this time?" Jiang Chen said with a sly smile. Liu Yao's face suddenly turned red. His sly smile reminded her of the last time she came to Singapore, watching the movie she shot while doing strange things. Raising her eyebrows, Liu Yao joked provocatively, "Oh, do you only have 2 minutes? If you forget, you'll know after you try it. Pervert." Jiang Chen hung up the phone with a smile, put the phone aside, and enjoyed the leisure time of summer. The clouds in the distance were like a small boat, drifting in the blue sky. The sea breeze with a few strands of coconut fragrance brushed across his cheeks, taking away the heat from his body. Jiang Chen couldn't help but let his eyes go blank, and took a short nap on this good day for a nap. The next day, Jiang Chen went to Dr. Amos's laboratory to inspect the experiment on Mental Bridge. Unfortunately, the experiment seemed to have encountered a bottleneck. Although the chip from the end of the world was used to solve the overheating problem, it seemed to put a great load on the brain. Connecting for half an hour continuously will cause a user to fall into a coma, thus interrupting the connection. Amos is debugging, but even so, his research results are enough to be proud of. So far, this is the only technology that Jiang Chen has seen in this world that surpasses the 22nd century. As for how far Amos can go in this field, that was beyond his expectation. As soon as he left Dr. Amos's laboratory, Sun Jiao called and said that the CEO of Walmart requested to meet him. "Walmart? Is it a problem with the nutritional mixture? Why didn't he go to Taoming?" Jiang Chen asked in confusion. "It's not the nutritional mixture, it's Vrastore." After listening to Sun Jiao's explanation, Jiang Chen slapped his head and realized it. Now the scope of the future group's industries is getting wider and wider. In addition to the initial negotiations with major e-commerce companies, Jiang Chen has given the entire project of Vrastore to the project team of Future Technology. Ning Huajian, who took over Sun Jiao's class, is very capable. The people selected to join the Vrastore project team are all elites in the company. In the end, the results achieved did not disappoint Jiang Chen, the chairman, so Jiang Chen did not ask too much about the details of this project. "Where is he now?" Jiang Chen asked. It's in the group building. Has he come yet? Then let him wait for me in my office. Okay. After hanging up the phone, Jiang Chen took the elevator directly to the floor where his office was located. At the door of the chairman's office, he met the representative sent by Walmart to negotiate, CEO Macmillan. As soon as he saw Jiang Chen, Macmillan immediately greeted him warmly. It's nice to meet you, Mr. Jiang Chen. Please forgive me for coming uninvited. Haha, that's polite. Future Group welcomes you, Mr. Macmillan. Standing at the door and talking is not a gentleman's way of hospitality. Please come in. After inviting Macmillan into the office, the two sat down in front of the sofa in the office. The office secretary in old clothes skillfully made 2 cups of coffee for the two. Ask Ning Huajian to come over. Yes. The secretary nodded with a smile, responded to Jiang Chen's instructions, and left the office. Since the middle of last year, 17, the headquarters of all the companies under the Future Group have moved to Singapore, including Future Technology in Hong Kong. Although the chief executive of the Special Administrative Region tried to retain him, Jiang Chen still carried out the decision. As for the reason, it was simple. It would save Future Group billions of dollars in taxes every year. Future Technologies Huaxia district operations will be operated by a branch company and will no longer be directly managed by the parent company. There are many benefits of localizing operations and management, and I will not go into details here. While waiting for Ning Huajian to come, Jiang Chen looked at Macmillan and asked with a smile. Mr. Macmillan, I heard that you are here for Restore, right? Yes. I have already filled in the application for this, Macmillan said humorously. Soon, the office door was opened again, and Ning Huajian walked in. Boss, are you looking for me? This gentleman is looking for you, the CEO of Walmart. Please sit down first. Jiang Chen made a gesture to the sofa and introduced Macmillan to Ning Huajian with a smile. After listening to Jiang Chen's introduction, Ning Huajian immediately understood Macmillan's intention and said to Macmillan with a smile, Futureman Technology welcomes every partner to join, especially Vrastor. If Walter is willing to join our big family, I will certainly welcome him with open arms. However, when he said this, Ning Huajian suddenly changed the subject. But one thing is very regrettable. The Vrastor operation team has limited ability to scan goods, and it is not an easy task to establish VR images. At present, we can only scan 100,000 pieces per month. Ning Huajian did not finish his words, but his meaning was already very clear. 100,000 items are allowed to be logged into Vrastor every month, which is not enough for 7 e-commerce companies. We asked you to join but you didn't. Now we have signed cooperation agreements with other e-commerce companies. What have you been doing at Walmart? Can't the scanning speed be increased? Macmillan asked anxiously. The number of 100,000 will definitely increase gradually, but you know that we must give priority to the needs of our partners, Ning Huajian said. Macmillan was silent for a moment, sorted out his thoughts, and spoke. I know our proposal may make you embarrassed, but we promise that we will not let you do it in vain. For the 18th Global Commodity Expo, our Walmart company has obtained the qualification to host it. If you can help us scan 300,000 items to log into Vrastor in the next 2 months, in exchange, we can invite you to assist in organizing it. After a pause, Macmillan looked at Ning Huajian and then at Jiang Chen. Hold a global small commodity expo based on the VR platform that attracts global attention. Chapter 730, City Concept. In a small villa with a wide backyard in Florida, the United States, a man was carrying a bag and preparing to go to work when his wife suddenly ran over with a tablet. Honey, look at what this is. What's wrong, honey? Let me see. The man smiled and took the tablet from his wife's hand, casually glanced at the news on it, but within 2 seconds, he suddenly widened his eyes and murmured in disbelief. Got the world's first VR product expo, a grand event attended by hundreds of millions of people on the same stage. It is no longer just companies that participate in the event, but also consumers will participate in it. The idea of holding an expo on a VR platform is undoubtedly a bit unrealistic. However, no one would doubt whether Futureman Technology has the strength to do so. When the news was announced for the first time, almost the vast majority of netizens felt the expectation, and all businessmen keenly smelled the business opportunities from it. This will break the limitations of previous expos from business to business, connecting businesses with businesses in a B2B mode, and connecting merchants with individuals in a B2C mode. The expo will no longer be just a procurement conference for companies, but will also become a promotion conference for the products themselves. I have to go to the company as soon as possible. The boss will definitely be interested in this news. The man kissed his wife on the forehead. He put the tablet in his briefcase and immediately opened the door to the garage. From large machinery, motorcycles, auto parts, chemical products, clocks, and watches, to tableau and kitchenware, craft ceramics, home decorations, medical equipment, men's and women's clothing, and office stationery. This global commodity expo covers almost all areas of human production and life. There are more than 500,000 exhibits and the exhibition period is more than 5 months. When Macmillan proposed this exchange condition, Jiang Chen agreed to his conditions without any hesitation. Scan 300,000 items for Walmart to log into Vrstore within 2 months, and in future cooperation, Walmart will be given the same priority as the other 7 cooperative e-commerce companies. For future technology, this is not a particularly difficult task. Expand the staff, and improve the efficiency of VR image production. Increase the monthly scanning quota to 400,000, and squeeze out 150,000 quotas, to allocate to Walmart every month, which is just enough to complete the 300,000 quota. The extra 100,000 quotas will be allocated to the VR Merchandise Expo, as long as they can ensure that 500,000 items are scanned within 5 months. If this merchandise expo is successful, it will definitely be a win-win cooperation for Vrstore and Walmart. Social networking and shopping, we can definitely integrate the two. I suddenly thought of a brilliant idea. Standing in Jiang Chen's office, after reporting on the preparations for the expo, Ning Huajian suddenly promoted his ideas to Jiang Chen. What idea? Jiang Chen put down the documents in his hand, and asked with interest. Reference to the god-level continent. We can definitely add a third function to Vrstore. Virtual city. Is there any difference between this and our virtual mall model? Jiang Chen asked. The difference is huge. Ning Huajian said excitedly. The virtual mall is a local area network nature team shopping model based on the friend system of the Phantom Helmet. And the concept I proposed is closer to an online game on a local area network. Hearing the word online game, Jiang Chen immediately understood what he meant, and his eyes suddenly became more enlightened. You mean? That's right. We can build a virtual city that expands dynamically with the number of users, just like the god-level continent. While shopping, users can also exchange opinions with other users who are also shopping, become friends, and invite each other to enter their private space. Not only that, when users meet their social needs in the virtual city, we can launch a virtual prop purchase function in a timely manner. For example, houses, cars, furniture, clothes, kitchen utensils. Before buying these things in the real world, users can buy them in their own virtual space to try them out. After listening, Jiang Chen's eyes lit up. This idea is quite interesting. Inspiration is so magical. Although they are all fragmented ideas, Ning Huajian's wild imagination unexpectedly resonated with Jiang Chen. As the two exchanged opinions, these fragmented ideas were gradually pieced together into a complete puzzle. Vrcity. Jiang Chen suddenly spoke, interrupting Ning Huajian's endless chatter. What? Ning Huajian was stunned and asked. I'm talking about Vrcity. Jiang Chen looked at Ning Huajian with a sharp gaze. These ideas don't need to be confined to the framework of Vrstory. We can completely set up a new project team to design a virtual social software called Vrcity. Vrcity will build a virtual city based on the expansion of the number of users and will be linked with Vrstore and the login space of the Phantom Helmet. Users can use simulated coins to purchase real estate in the residential area of the virtual city, and the purchased real estate will serve as the login interface of their own Phantom Helmet. Hearing this, the excitement in Jiang Chen's eyes was immediately contagious to Ning Huajian's eyes. Great. The most common opinion we received on our official website is that the white cube space is too ugly. But are the server resources sufficient? If users are allowed to DIY their own rooms? Absolutely enough. Jiang Chen smiled. The end of the world has already digested the civilian-grade quantum computer production technology obtained from Hancheng. The first batch of civilian-grade quantum computers has come off the production line and was transported to the present world by Jiang Chen. Now the future group has 10 civilian-grade quantum computers in reserve, which is enough to afford this project. After downloading Restore, users will no longer appear in an isolated white cube when they put on the helmet, but in a virtual room that is much more beautiful and spacious than the real world. When they open the door, they can welcome the entire virtual world. Complete various interesting small tasks in the virtual city to get simulation coins, and use simulation coins to buy virtual products. If you are satisfied with the virtual product, you can directly jump to the interface linked to Restore and throw this virtual product into the shopping cart in the present world. If this idea can really be realized, Vrcity will be able to connect the entire VR world into a whole. For this virtual city, we can draw some people from the operation team of the god-level continent to form this new project team. For the content of this Vrcity, we can recruit people from Rockstar Studio and EA's Maxis Studio. Rockstar Studio is the famous Rockstar in the gaming industry. Its Grand Theft Auto series of city-themed games have been widely praised worldwide. Maxis is also a great studio, and the SimCity series is their masterpiece. It is absolutely the most suitable combination to have talents from these two studios to design this game Vrcity. With the financial resources of Future Man Technology, it is not difficult to recruit people from these two studios. Boss, I feel like inspiration is gushing like magma. I have to go back to the office now and organize everything I just wrote on paper. Jiang Chen waved his hand, then stopped talking nonsense and go. Yes. Ning Huajian pushed the door open excitedly and ran to his office. Chapter 731 The Strong Will Always Be Strong. Jiang Chen originally planned to buy the two studios directly, but there was a little surprise during the acquisition process. Maxis was easy to deal with, as EA, which was always destroying games, was known as the studio killer second only to Microsoft. The huge Maxis series of studios had been cut again and again, and Futureman Technology was willing to acquire the studio they were ready to cut. Naturally, they were very happy and readily sold the studio responsible for the development of SimCity under the Maxis series of studios to Jiang Chen at a premium of $20 million. Rockstar was in a bit of trouble. Rockstar's parent company was Take-Two, which was in good operating condition. The GTA 6, Return to Liberty City launched in June 2017 continued the glory of GTA 5, expanding the map from the entire California to the entire New York plus a European city. The map area reached more than twice that of the previous seat, and easily created a sales miracle of 40 million copies across all platforms. Take-Two would certainly not be stupid enough to sell such a cash cow. In this case, Futureman Technology had to settle for the second best and directly poach people. The international headhunting company hired by Jiang Chen provided him with a list of 27 people including planners, scriptwriters, and chief designers of Rockstar Studios, as well as their personal information, income, and debt. After getting the list, Jiang Chen directly raised their monthly salary by 50% and then sent the list back to the headhunting company, asking them to recruit people according to this standard. Jiang Chen handed over the specific matters of setting up the Vrcity project department to Ning Huajian. He is an expert in this regard. Although he is a leader in virtual reality, he definitely does not understand the market better than a CEO who has worked his way up from the grassroots. After finishing the things at hand, Jiang Chen saw that it was still early to get off work, so he went to the materials science laboratory on the way to inspect the research progress of the laboratory. After solving the graphene problem, the materials science laboratory recently absorbed a group of researchers and established two new project departments to conduct research in the two research directions of graphene cables and graphene chips. The former is aimed at space elevators, and the latter serves the electronics industry of future human-heavy industry. Some time ago, the new supercomputer top 500 list was announced at the International Supercomputing Conference, ISC, in Frankfurt, Germany. The Xi'an 3 developed by China's National 863 Program Key Project and the National Parallel Computer Engineering Technology Research Center once again topped the top 500 list after the Shenhua Taihu Lite. Unlike previous years, China not only took the top spot in the supercomputer list, but also directly took the top 5. This made the comprador of the China Computer Engineering Technology Research Center very happy, and he quickly added an order of 100,000 yuan per month to Future Heavy Industry, increasing the monthly import volume to 200,000 yuan. According to this trend, it is just around the corner to surpass Britain and catch up with the United States. China's dominance of supercomputers also scared the United States. Although Intel has also launched a new supercomputer chip based on graphene materials, the gap is still more than a little bit compared with Future Heavy Industry's Dragon Cavalry X1. In desperation, although the US Department of Defense wanted to support local manufacturers such as Intel and Qualcomm, it selectively purchased 50,000 supercomputer chips to upgrade the performance of the Department of Defense's supercomputers. However, this deal was not finally concluded because Future Group refused to fully disclose the technical details of the LIX architecture, which was an intolerable security risk for the Pentagon. Unless Future Heavy Industry is a local American company, they still cannot trust it. However, those private supercomputing centers do not have so many concerns. In the market economy, the survival of the fittest is fully reflected. For example, after seeing the powerful functions of the Dragoon X1 chip, Google directly threw an order of 60,000 chips per month to Future Heavy Industry to upgrade its servers located across the United States. After seeing the strength of Future Heavy Industry in the field of chip manufacturing, Google simply gave up its plan to enter the chip manufacturing industry. Businessmen are all profit-seeking. Google consumes more than 300,000 chips per quarter. If it adopts the Dragoon X1, it will be able to reduce the number of servers by at least 10% while maintaining its current business. Although the wholesale price offered by Future Heavy Industry is $347 per chip, 60,000 chips per month means an expenditure of $20.82 million. But from the perspective of overall cost, choosing the Dragoon X1 can save them at least $200 million per year. They have lost the motivation to develop chips independently. Not only Google, but also HP and Dell, the first and second largest server chip purchasing customers in the United States, have also shown great interest in the Dragoon X1 of Future Heavy Industry. At present, the monthly shipments of the Dragoon X1 supercomputer chip produced by Future Heavy Industry have reached a terrifying number of 500,000 pieces, of which 200,000 flow to China, 100,000 flow to supercomputer centers in small countries such as Switzerland and Europe, and the remaining 200,000 flow to the United States. It is foreseeable that for a long time to come, the battle on the top 500 list of the Frankfurt International Supercomputing Conference in Germany will be extremely fierce. Whoever uses the Dragoon in the supercomputing center will dominate the list. If the top 10 computers on the list all use the Dragoon, then the only thing to do is to compare who has more Dragoons and who uses them more skillfully. Unless the quantum computer of starring trade is made public, it is unlikely to end this situation. In view of the current fierce competition among the major supercomputing centers, the Graphene Laboratory is working on the development of the Dragoon X2 chip, intending to make money from it. Want to become stronger? Want to show national pride in the news? Then come and buy the Dragoon X2. Jiang Chen even thought of the advertising slogan. Future Heavy Industry has finally completed the registration of the LIX architecture in various countries and registered patents for each instruction set. After receiving the news, Lungsan Zhang immediately came to Jiang Chen and obtained the authorization of the LIX architecture, preparing to start the independent research and development of supercomputing chips based on the LIX architecture. This was agreed upon when the chip was sold, so Jiang Chen signed it very readily. The patent fee is uniform globally. For chips using the LIX architecture, 10% of the selling price is used as a patent fee. Although this figure is twice as high as Qualcomm's 5%, Qualcomm charges the whole piece, while Future Heavy Industry is very conscientious and only charges per piece. Qualcomm's model only produce chips if the chip is only sold for $10. The chip is used in the mobile phone, and the mobile phone is finally sold for $600. Then it needs to pay 5% of the entire mobile phone as patent fees. However, Jiang Chen noticed that Mr. Wu Weiwen, the president of Lungsan Technology, who came to sign the patent agreement, did not look particularly happy. Mr. Wu, do you have any questions? Jiang Chen asked happily. Wu Weiwen shook his head. No problem. I just think Mr. Jiang is good at tactics. I don't quite understand what you mean. Can you tell me in detail? Jiang Chen smiled. Wu Weiwen smiled, said nothing, and walked away with the authorization agreement of the Lix architecture. Jiang Chen noticed that his back seemed to be much older than when he came. Lungsun Technology is a state-owned enterprise and enjoys financial subsidies in its business operations. In theory, the president Wu Wenwei does not need to worry about performance. Even if he couldn't sell a chip for a year or two, the company would never have to worry about bankruptcy. To be honest, when Jiang Chen agreed to license the Lix architecture to Lungsun, he could clearly feel the care from his superiors for Lungsun. However, when the first batch of Dragoon X1 was sent to the 4 major supercomputing centers and the researchers in the supercomputing centers cheered loudly, Wu Wenwei could clearly feel that the look of the leader standing next to him suddenly changed. Especially after taking the top 5 in the supercomputer list. The leaders in charge of the key projects of the 863 plan were almost collectively promoted, and the project leaders even received praise from the chairman. This is a great honor. Whether it is for individuals, countries, or nations. It is precisely because of this that this honor cannot be put down. Sure enough, as Wu Weiwen expected, the leader in charge of the supercomputer project contacted Future Heavy Industry as soon as he was praised and increased the number of purchase orders. High tech is like poison. Once the hole is opened, it can't be stopped. You took the top 5 this year. Are you embarrassed to lose this ranking next year? Do you still want political achievements? What if you don't want to lose it? You can only buy the Dragoon X1. How long do you have to wait for those old scholars to come up with their research results? At a wine table, a sentence from the leader above made Wu Weiwen feel deeply uneasy. You can't always stick to that set of protectionism. Without the market, how can you be competitive? This future group is also a child of our country. Instead of filling this bottomless pit with thankless labor, it is better to introduce their technology. After all, we are a family, right? This idea is very dangerous. Very dangerous. However, Wu Wenwei also knows that as the president of a state-owned enterprise, he has no power to change this. Things that can be solved by spending money are not problems, but some things are destined not to be solved by spending money. Unless he can defeat the Dragoon X1 and take out the supercomputer chip that looks down on the world's top. But is this possible? Future Heavy Industry has occupied the commanding heights of the market and has become a standard setter. With its technological advantages, it will take over the vast majority of orders in the entire market. With the income from these orders, and then continuously investing these funds into research and development projects, their technology can only become stronger and more unattainable. By then, even Intel and ARM will have to borrow the instruction set of the Lix architecture to enrich their own x86 architecture and ARM architecture, and pay patent fees to Futureman Technology, which owns the intellectual property rights of the Lix architecture. The strong will always be strong. This is the market. Before the emergence of disruptive products, the giants who have already occupied the high point have no possibility of being tripped. It is foreseeable that, even if he now obtains the authorization of the Lix architecture, at least in the next 10 years, they will absolutely be inseparable from the chips of Futureman Group. Chapter 732, Koro University is unveiled. In the suburbs of Koro City, a European-style manor building covering an area of 2,000 acres is located here. The solemn main building exudes a college atmosphere, and the green lawn makes everything full of vitality. At this moment, at the door of this luxurious building, a crowd of people stood together. Looking around, there were young faces, and all of them were filled with enthusiasm. And the person standing on the high platform at the door was our protagonist Jiang Chen. First of all, let me make it clear that this is not Jiang Chen's manor, but a newly built university. Well, in fact, there is no essential difference between the two. When Jiang Chen stood on the podium, the crowd burst into warm cheers. The people below the stage waved the small national flag of the new country and the small flag with the emblem of the future group, paying the highest respect to the high-tech enterprise leader who led the new country to prosperity. In the hearts of young people, he undoubtedly has an unshakable influence. Wearing jeans and a white t-shirt, Jiang Chen stood on the podium, smiled and waved to the crowd, and then picked up the microphone. Your enthusiasm really surprised me. This is probably the most enthusiastic public speech I have ever attended. Seeing Jiang Chen waving at him, the cheers from the audience came like a wave. Look, look. He's waving at me. A tall beauty pulled her best friend and shouted excitedly. He's looking over here. Long live Jiang Chen. Long live new country. Long live future group. Looking at the eager eyes in the audience, Jiang Chen smiled. Although it was not the first time he stood under the gaze of tens of thousands of people, no matter how many times he faced this scene, he still couldn't help but feel excited. The young people in the audience were the future elites of new country. They came from new country and even the whole world. To be able to make these arrogant intellectuals admire him, the sense of accomplishment was really not a little bit. Seeing that the atmosphere was almost right, he cleared his throat and spoke out his opening remarks. It is my honor to stand here and give the opening speech to our first batch of freshmen as the first president of Kora University. The applause rang out and then gradually died down. The noise on the scene gradually subsided and the eyes of the whole audience gathered here. In response to the expectation in those eyes, Jiang Chen continued. I don't have much to say, and I believe you don't want to listen to me read a lot of school rules and regulations. Here, I will talk about why Kora University was established. I have always emphasized the importance of science and technology. Science and technology are changing our lives, changing the earth under our feet, and in the future it will change the solar system and even the Milky Way. And what will make all this happen is not money, nor the best experimental equipment, nor a president who can only brag to you. After a pause, Jiang Chen's eyes swept over every student in the audience. It's you who are about to participate in it, you all. I believe this is also the reason why you entrust your future to us. The applause was thunderous, and the passionate and ambitious faces in the audience reminded Jiang Chen of himself 7 years ago. At that time, he also had a similar mood and entered the small melting pot of the university, ready to practice his ambition in the field of mechanical automation. In the end, he became a salesman and was laid off. He never thought that it was because of his incompetence. At most, he was blind and chose the wrong path, or he chose the path that was not suitable for him too perfunctorily. He always believed that no one was a genius, and mediocrity was only because he had not found the extraordinary path. Amid the flash of the media and thunderous applause, Jiang Chen strode forward and waved to remove the red brocade on the school monument, exposing the 4 gold-plated characters of Kora University to the world's attention. At this time, the school motto engraved on the stone monument was also recorded in history. Discover, try, and change. The purpose of Kora University is the same. Discover, not indoctrinate. Discover the strengths of each student and guide them to eventually find the path that suits them. Those seemingly small powers will eventually breed the power to change the whole world. Education is the foundation of a country's development. As early as the establishment of Koro Island, Jiang Chen planned to build a world-class institution of higher learning to free Singapore from its dependence on foreign high-tech talents and truly achieve self-production and self-sale of high-end talents. And now, he has finally fulfilled his original idea. The University of Koro has 6 colleges, namely the School of Economics and Management, the School of Information Technology, the School of Engineering Technology, the School of Life Sciences, the School of Science, and the School of Aerospace Technology. When the teaching staff is sufficient, the School of Law and the School of Culture and Media, as well as the School of Marine Resources Development, will be opened in the future. The educational foundation of New China is very weak, and there is no teaching staff to support a university. However, the charm of capital lies here. Although it is just a pile of green banknotes, it has the magic to change the world. Future Group announced the establishment of the New China Education Foundation and invested $1 billion in the University of Koro in the name of the foundation, and more than $100 million per year. The $1 billion will be used to pay teachers' salaries, purchase advanced experimental equipment, improve the teaching environment, and most importantly, poach people. If New China does not have professors who can teach, then go to foreign universities to buy them. What Harvard, Imperial College, MIT, As long as they meet the requirements, they will be bought at any cost. With high salaries and top-notch experimental equipment, Jiang Chen does not believe that the professors and scholars who received the invitation letters will not be tempted. As for the cost, that is not a problem he considers at all. Money in the bank is just a pile of waste paper. If you save too much, people will miss it. Its value can only be reflected when you spend it. Education is the only investment that will never lose money. Jiang Chen has always believed in this. While expanding the hard power of Kora University, Jiang Chen has not relaxed the supplement of its soft power. Every year, Future Group will provide 5,000 internship positions to Kora University and recruit at least 3,000 people from them to work in the group's branches. For students who have outstanding performance in certain aspects, Future Group will also sign a contract with them directly to fully bear their tuition and living expenses during school and agree to work in Future Group after graduation. At the same time, the New Country Education Foundation will also set up a total of 1,000 scholarship awards, with a total of $10 million each year as scholarships, which will be distributed to students with outstanding performance or need help. This is undoubtedly great news for international students in China and even around the world. The former solves the worries, while the latter solves the urgent tasks. For those young people who are deeply infected by the internet, what is more attractive than working in Future Group? As for tuition and living expenses, as long as I can get a scholarship, I won't even have to spend a penny from my family to complete 4 years of study. Chapter 733, Hiring the President of MIT. There are 6,217 freshmen in the first class. After half a year of preparatory courses, they will start their first academic year in early September this year. Raphael Reif, the 17th president of MIT who has been in office for 12 years, was poached by the headhunting company hired by Jiang Chen with an annual salary of $4 million after retirement. This is almost twice his previous annual salary. Even compared with the University of Chicago, which has the highest salary level, the annual salary offered by Jiang Chen is $1 million higher. In fact, to be honest, the proportion of Chinese in the University of Colorado is 65%. The school board once suggested that Jiang Chen poach people from Huaguo University. However, after careful consideration, Jiang Chen rejected this proposal. Putting aside the two aspects of identity and ability, he did not want to copy the bureaucratic management model of domestic universities to the new country. As the first university in the new country, the University of Colorado will be a model for the future education of the new country. Academic bureaucratization is by no means a good phenomenon. After exchanging opinions with scientists such as Liu Yuan and Amos, Jiang Chen finally made this decision. Compared with training a group of technicians with strong digestion ability, Jiang Chen hopes that the University of Koro can train a group of scientists with strong innovation ability. After Raphael Reif arrived in Singapore, Jiang Chen personally picked him up from the plane. Mr. Reif was obviously flattered that Jiang Chen valued him so much. Although he has a good influence in the academic world, he can never compare with Jiang Chen, the chairman of the Future Group, whose experience is comparable to that of a legend. The gray-haired old man, wearing a suit, looks stronger than expected. I've seen your speech at the University of Munich. I'm sorry to embarrass you, Jiang Chen said with a smile. Please don't be so modest. No one has more say than you in the field of artificial intelligence. Now there is another one, graphene. I think the guys at the University of Munich will be very grateful to you. Mr. Reif smiled and shook hands with Jiang Chen. After a pause, he continued. To be honest, I'm ready to retire, but after hearing about the philosophy of Kora University, I suddenly feel that I can still work for a few more years. But before I start working, I have a condition, that is, I don't want the school board to interfere too much with my philosophy of running a school. Don't worry, the school board will not interfere with your school. After you take office, I will give you the position of president and only be the honorary president. We are only responsible for providing funds, and you are responsible for helping us build a MIT in the Pacific. Jiang Chen said with a smile. Hearing this, Mr. Leaf finally nodded with relief. Running a university is different from running a business. Historical heritage and cultural accumulation cannot be completed overnight. When Koro University really becomes a world-renowned brand university, it will take at least 4 years for the first batch of graduates to leave the campus. The two talked for a long time about the school model of Koro University. Before saying goodbye, Leaf suddenly spoke half-jokingly. "Speaking of which, are you interested in giving lectures at my Koro University? Although I can only offer you an annual salary of $100,000. Me. I'm afraid I have nothing to say." Jiang Chen laughed. He only has an undergraduate degree, and he hasn't even studied for a master's degree. He knows exactly what his situation is. He asked himself that it's okay to let himself talk nonsense, but forget about giving lectures. That would simply mislead the students. No, I think you still have a lot to learn from Koro students, but even you haven't discovered it. Leaf looked at Jiang Chen with a smile. The motto of Koro University is to discover, try, and change. After a moment of silence, Jiang Chen spoke. "I will consider your opinion, but I'll state in advance that I will only offer an elective course at most. I bet that it must be the most popular elective course," Leaf said in a joking tone. As Koro University gradually got on the right track, Jiang Chen also shifted the focus of his work to the future group. Penglai City is about to be completed, the Global Commodity Expo, City, and the upcoming mobile phone of future technology. When Jiang Chen personally participated in these works, he truly realized how huge the industry under his name was. At the same time, he also felt how hard Zia Xiao, a woman, had to bear the weight of the entire group. According to Jane's statistics, she has always maintained an average of 2 meetings and 30 document approvals a day. Fortunately, Jane can help now. She used to review these documents manually. In the evening, Jiang Chen sat in the chairman's office, holding the coffee made by his secretary, looking at the night view of Koro City through the floor-to-ceiling window, thinking about the future development direction. Tanaka has been sealed in the basement of Crescent Island, and the Black Ship organization is dead in name only. With Mitsu Hiroto's list, the ghost agents have arrested most of the members of the Black Ship Asian branch, leaving only sporadic remnants fleeing in various places. In the arrest and assassination of these people, the ghost agents sent by Jiang Chen discovered some strange phenomena. Many members of the Black Ship organization have shown incredible abilities in their fights with the ghost agents, like superpowers. Based on the intelligence provided by the agents, Aisha summarized these abilities. Some of the more normal ones include enhanced 5 senses, enhanced recovery ability, enhanced athletic ability, etc., while some unscientific ones include manipulation of magnetization, discharge, mental shock, etc. Jiang Chen's intuition tells him that these abilities are likely related to hidden genetic codes. And these people, let's call them superpowers. How exactly they unlock the power of the genetic code without genetic drugs is still unknown. Was it the Black Ship that transformed them, or was it because they had these special abilities that they became a member of the Black Ship? But how did Tanaka bring these people together? Sighing, Jiang Chen drank the remaining coffee in the cup in one gulp. Originally, he was thinking about the direction of development, but somehow, he thought of other things. Forget it, let's leave these minions to the ghost agents to deal with. As for the superpowers, let's capture some of them and study them slowly. Putting the coffee cup on the table, Jiang Chen was about to ask the secretary on night duty to make another cup when there was a knock on the door. "Come in." Zia Xiao pushed open the door and walked in with a document. Seeing her still working so late, Jiang Chen couldn't help but feel a little apologetic. "Thank you for your hard work. No, this is my job." Zia Xiao tucked her hair behind her ears and said calmly, "This is the planning plan for the trade fair, and this is the project plan for City. Although I have reviewed it for you, it is better to take a look before signing." Taking the documents handed over by Zia Xiao, Jiang Chen began the review work under her guidance. The faint fragrance lingered at the tip of his nose, lingering. Perhaps because he was too close, he could even feel her breathing and her nervous heartbeat. Chapter 734 Who is the boss here? Jiang Chen finally suppressed his restless heart and focused all his attention on the documents on the table. At this time, he was surprised to find that he had finished processing the documents at hand without noticing. Putting the documents aside, he suddenly felt relieved. It was as if the work that had been piled up for a long time was finally completed, and it was as if he had made up for some debts that had never been fulfilled. Looking at Xiao, who was putting the documents away, Jiang Chen suddenly smiled and said, "Are you free later?" "Yeah." Xiao stopped what she was doing and looked at him with a questioning expression. "If you are free after work, let's go for a drink together. I heard there is a good bar nearby." Perhaps she was surprised why Jiang Chen suddenly made such an invitation. Xiao was stunned for a moment. Just when Jiang Chen was hesitating whether to add, "If you are busy, forget it," she unexpectedly nodded and responded softly, "Yeah." It was already 10 o'clock in the evening. Natasha raised her left hand to check her watch and then looked at the dark villa. All the lights were off, and it seemed that the people inside should be asleep. Thinking of this, she hesitated for a while, but finally made a decision and reached out to press the doorbell. But before her fingers reached it, the door opened by itself. After a pause, she looked in the direction of the villa and saw a girl standing by an open window, looking at her quietly. Needless to say, it was obviously Aisha standing there. Only that guy would stand in front of the window like a husband waiting stone every day, waiting for that guy to come back. Entering the courtyard, crossing the path on the lawn, Natasha walked to the door of the villa and turned the door directly. Because she often came here to drink, she was very familiar with this place. The main door of Jiang Chen's villa was never locked. As for why, just ask the hundreds of hummingbird drones lurking in the courtyard. No one can approach this villa without going through the main entrance. If there is, it is destined to be a dead person. Therefore, he didn't need to lock the main door of the villa. The area within the courtyard wall was an absolutely safe zone. Pushing the door open, Natasha complained and turned on the light in the living room. "It's so dark in the room. Why don't you turn on the light?" The light illuminated the dark room, revealing Aisha's figure. She had gone downstairs without knowing when and stood beside the sofa in the living room, as if she had been there from the beginning. "Because it's not necessary," Aisha said lightly. The night was no different from the day for her. This was particularly obvious after she awakened the cold-blooded skill. The genetic code not only strengthened her ability to hide, but also strengthened her perception in the dark. Although she couldn't achieve night vision, it was almost the same. She was simply a natural assassin. "Are you born in the year of the cat?" Natasha complained. Aisha didn't answer, but spoke coldly as always. "Jiang Chen is not here. You can go back. Don't be so anxious to send me away." Natasha rolled her eyes. "Where did he go?" "I worked overtime today," Aisha said softly. "That's rare." "Yes. You didn't accompany him?" "He asked me to come back first." The topic was interrupted just like that, and Natasha was speechless about Aisha's ability to end the topic. Although she has always tried to get along well with this little girl, she didn't know whether the relationship between the two of them had been brought closer in the slightest. The silence lasted for a moment, and Natasha went straight to the point, putting on a serious expression and said, "According to the KGB's intelligence, someone is plotting an assassination against him." Aisha blinked and said nothing. Seeing that she didn't respond, Natasha looked at her in confusion. "You don't seem to be worried?" "As long as I'm alive, no one can hurt him," Aisha said softly. "Are you too confident?" Natasha couldn't help but roll her eyes at her again. Aisha shook her head. "It's not because she's too confident, but because a security worker's foolproof. Even if she wasn't there were still other ghost agent sisters around. And the most important thing was that, even if all these were left aside, Jiang Chen's own strength was not something that ordinary people could match. Moreover, this was New China. The lights flickered with the rhythm of the drums, and the young bodies in the dance floor twisted wildly to the beat of the music. The crisp clinking of glasses was heard incessantly, and the noise and teasing were tinged with a bit of noise. It was now 10 o'clock, and for the city of Koro, the nightlife had just begun. It was funny to say that this was Jiang Chen's first time to come to a place like a bar, if you don't count the time in the 6th block. Looking at those young bodies from a distance, Jiang Chen always had an inexplicable sense of distance, as if he couldn't fit in. On the other hand, Xiao's expression seemed to be full of discomfort with such a place. But putting aside this gap, as Natasha said, the cocktails here are really good. The side bangs half covered the feminine face. The gentlest bartender shook the cocktail shaker in his hand and skillfully mixed a blue margarita for Jiang Chen. This was the 5th one he ordered. The alcohol content of the cocktail was not high, more like juice than wine. A surge of urination came over Jiang Chen, and he put down the glass and said to Sun Jiao, who was sitting next to him, "I'm going to the bathroom." Yes. After Jiang Chen left, Sun Jiao, who had been very reserved, slowly breathed a sigh of relief. Somehow, she accepted Jiang Chen's invitation. She clearly had work to do, and she was not good at drinking. But it's true, I've been so busy at work, it's time to relax. Sun Jiao shook her head vigorously and explained to herself. At this moment, a man in a plaid shirt walked over to her and sat down, whistling frivolously. "Beauty, what's your name?" Sun Jiao looked at him expressionlessly and ignored him, but took a sip of red wine. The cold attitude made Wang Bio, who came forward to chat with him, feel very embarrassed, and he couldn't help but narrow his eyes slightly. In front of the boss, he patted his chest and boasted that he could get any woman the boss liked. "Our boss wants to invite you over for a drink, beautiful lady, can you please come?" Following Wang Bio's gaze, she saw a man sitting on the sofa in the corner of the bar, hugging left and right, and raising his glass to her from a distance with what he thought was a cool move. The naked smile made Sun Jiao feel nauseous. Seeing this, Sun Jiao couldn't help but laugh. Why do so many people always feel good about themselves? No need. I advise you to think about it. Wang Bio grinned, and a trace of hostility flashed in his narrowed eyes. "Do you know who our boss is?" The bright red wine reflected an impatient pretty face. Sun Jiao gently shook the wine glass and said in a cold tone, "Who? Have you heard of the King Lang gang?" Wang Bio laughed and said in a tone that he had her in his hands. "Everyone in the underworld knows that when I, Biozi, do things, no one dares to say no. I advise you to be obedient, and don't blame me for not reminding you when you get caught." "Really? But I haven't heard of it." The discordant voice came from behind, and Wang Bio frowned and turned his head. The dim light made him unable to see the man's face completely, but just looking at the outline, he always felt that he was very familiar, but he just couldn't remember where he had seen him for a while. "Who are you? Is this the sequel of the flood of immigrants?" Jiang Chen couldn't help but sigh as he looked at the little thug in front of him. The new country now is just like the United States in the 19th century. It's not just the immigrants who dream of a better life who smell the fragrance of freedom, but also the criminals who traveled across the ocean. If this hidden danger is not solved soon, it will definitely ferment into a serious public security problem in the future. It seems that something needs to be done. Seeing that the man in front of him didn't answer, Wang Bio was completely enraged by being ignored twice. He was called Biozi on the street, and it was the first time he had suffered such a great humiliation. "You dare to be distracted when I'm talking. Are you tired of living?" Wang Bio curled his lips, stretched out his hand towards Jiang Chen's neck, and took out a wine bottle with his other hand. He made up his mind to pinch this idiot's neck, press him into the toilet, and teach him what humility is. However, he didn't get what he wanted. Wang Bio's outstretched hand was like embedded in a transparent wall, unable to move forward or backward, and his face gradually turned liver-colored. The change happened in an instant, so that no one reacted. The onlookers were stunned at first, and then they all moved back to avoid being hurt by mistake. The bartender at the bar was still wiping the cups calmly. When she was mixing the drinks just now, she had obviously seen Jiang Chen's identity, but she just didn't say it. Sun Jiao's heart jumped to her throat, but soon jumped back, because she suddenly realized that Jiang Chen, who was protected by the ghost agent, could not be hurt by such a small fry. The optical invisibility gradually dissipated. Zhuu, who was standing half a step in front of Jiang Chen, calmly squeezed the man's hand. The power injected with genetic drugs was not something that this little bastard could look down on. The light here was very dim, and only a few people standing nearby saw Zhuu appearing out of thin air in front of Jiang Chen. Facing the woman who appeared out of thin air in front of him, Wang Bio's eyes were almost bulging out. "Is this a ghost, or am I drunk?" Seeing the commotion here, the onlookers around gathered around and shouted, "Beat her. Don't be a coward, fight her. Fuck, you can't even beat a woman. Brother, are you still a man?" However, Wang Biao didn't dare to do anything. He had gradually realized that he might be hitting a wall. ZHUU was indifferent to the booing of the onlookers. He just whispered to Jiang Chen in the communication channel what to do. Jiang Chen didn't answer, but walked around ZHUU and stood in front of Wang Biao. I don't care if you are King Lang or Beihu, and I don't care if you are Biozi or Biozi. Jiang Chen looked at him with a smile and said the words that made Wang Biao feel like he was falling into an ice cave. If you have heard of Future Group, you should know who is the boss here. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 735, Moonlight Like Water. Who is the boss here? This question seems to be nonsense. After recognizing Jiang Chen's identity, Wang Biao's face turned pale, and his face was as white as a wall. The beer bottle in his left hand also fell to the ground with a bang. The dim light flickered. Li Qiangsheng, the boss of the King Lang gang, who was sitting not far away, saw his little brother being pinched by a female bodyguard, and his eyebrows raised. He was really tired of living. Who in the underworld didn't know that this street was the territory of his King Lang gang? Qiangsheng, Biozi seems to have been taken advantage of. The beautiful woman lying in his arms said in a coquettish voice. You little devil, stop making trouble. Wait until I take care of the two of them first, and then I will take care of you. Li Qiangsheng licked his dry lips and scanned the two beauties next to Jiang Chen. Although one of them was a little cold, her beautiful face was simply irresistible. The female bodyguard looked pretty good, with a face that still had the immaturity of a young girl, and his intuition of appraising beauty for many years told him that the two girls were still virgins. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but feel a little annoyed. It's really frustrating to compare yourself with others. Look at what kind of stuff you have in your hands. Letting go of the heavily made up girl in his arms, Li Qiangsheng stood up, gestured to the younger brother next to him, and walked over slowly with a group of younger brothers. A man wearing a black t-shirt with a blue dragon walked out of the crowd, and a group of young men with shaved heads surrounded Jiang Chen. Judging from the posture of these people and the weapons in their hands, they are obviously engaged in the underworld industry, and they are professional ones. Standing a few steps behind Jiang Chen, Li Qiangsheng twisted his neck and grinned. Sir, you touched my brother on my territory. Are you tired of living, or tired of living, or tired of living? Boss. Wang Biao looked at Li Qiangsheng tremblingly. His mouth couldn't even say a word. Don't be afraid, leave it to me. Li Qiangsheng saw that his younger brother was so touched that he was about to cry, and the elder brother's style was even more outrageous. Looking at Jiang Chen's back, his words became even more fierce. If you dare to touch me, if you can walk out of this bar intact today, my name Li Qiangsheng will be written upside down. Jiang Chen tilted his head slightly and asked with interest. Oh, tell me, how are you going to solve this matter? Either leave 2 fingers, or lend me your girlfriend and this bodyguard for 2 days. Girlfriend? What is a girlfriend? Xia Xiao's face suddenly turned red, but soon her expression turned into anger. Jiang Chen suddenly laughed. Born in the wall. This name doesn't seem very elegant. Take a step back, how about shooting on the wall? You. Hearing the playful ridicule, Li Qiangsheng was immediately furious. Just as he was about to call on his younger brother to take action, at this moment, a dozen burly men wearing sunglasses pushed through the crowd and walked in. Li Qiangsheng frowned slightly, and when he saw the logo of Xinghuan Trade, his face turned green instantly. At this time, Wang Biao, who had been trembling, finally said what he had been chewing for a long time. Boss, run, run. Jiang Chen turned around. At this moment, Li Qiangsheng finally saw the face clearly. It was also at this moment that his face lost the last trace of blood. This street is the territory of the King Lang gang, but the entire new country is Jiang Chen's territory. A bodyguard stepped forward and stood beside Jiang Chen, bowed his head respectfully, waiting for his instructions. Looking at Li Qiangsheng, who was as hen-faced, with a smile, Jiang Chen said lightly, catch everyone and throw them into the police station. If you let one run away, you don't have to come to see me. Yes. The bodyguard nodded, took the order, and looked at Li Qiangsheng with a grim smile on his lips. A dozen bodyguards raised their fists and walked towards the gang of hooligans. They handcuffed the obedient ones and punched the disobedient ones. These street hooligans were no match for these quasi-soldiers. They were beaten to tears. The screams of ghosts and wolves were heard one after another beside the dance floor of the bar. It was a one-sided beating. The onlookers were dumbfounded. The one-sided beating was not at all entertaining. The security guards of the bar stood far away and did not dare to say anything. Wang Bio was thrown out by ZHU with one hand. Jiang Chen sat back at his seat next to the bar and looked at the bartender who was standing there stupidly. Give me a royal punch with more ice. It didn't take long to deal with those spoiling the fun. The bodyguards of Xinghu and Trade knocked them all to the ground in no time. After receiving the alarm, the police finally arrived at the bar. After Jiang Chen revealed his identity, the police did not ask who started the fight first. Without saying a word, they handcuffed the bruised and swollen Li Qiangsheng and others and put them in the police car. No matter how powerful the backing is, if they dare to cause trouble to Jiang Chen, even if the president comes, they can't save them. Although the trouble was solved, the mood was completely ruined. Especially when Jiang Chen knew that he was here. He could clearly feel that the DJ in the bar had lowered the decibel by 2 volumes. After ordering a few more cocktails, Jiang Chen left a few bills on the table and left with Zai Xiaoyu. The fresh breeze blew on his face, slightly blowing away the smell of alcohol. Coming to the modified Lamborghini, Jiang Chen opened the door and sat in the driver's seat, looking at Zai Xiaoyu sitting next to him with a little apology. Sorry, I originally brought you here to relax, but I didn't expect to make you unhappy. It's okay. Zai Xiaoyu shook her head, and a rare smile appeared on her cold face. Speaking of which, I really miss it. Miss it? Well, do you remember that day? Are you talking about 3 years ago? Jiang Chen smiled. Yeah. Zai Xiaoyu nodded, and her watery pupils were stained with the color of memories. On the same night, Jiang Chen rescued her from a gangster who was collecting debts. The only difference might be that he had nothing at the beginning, but now there are many people working for him, including himself. The moonlight outside the window was bright, and the palm leaves were swaying gently. It was not only the shadows of the trees that were swaying, but also the heartstrings of the 2 people in the car. Perhaps because of the wine, her face was slightly red. The fragrance on her body was permeated with a hint of intoxicating red wine fragrance, and the slender hair softly rested on her cheeks, which was so tempting under the beautiful moonlight. For a moment, Jiang Chen couldn't help but be fascinated. The narrow space is always a catalyst for ambiguity. Feeling the temperature in that sight, the red blush like dripping blood climbed from her white neck all the way to her crystal earlobe. The heartbeat gradually became louder, and it became difficult to tell who it belonged to. Bathed in that fiery sight, Zai Xiaoyu moved her body a little awkwardly, pretending not to see it. The atmosphere in the car made her feel uncomfortable, but surprisingly she didn't hate it. The emotions that had been suppressed for a long time could not be suppressed and poured out from the bottom of her heart. The car slowly stopped beside the deserted road. The breathing became heavier, and it was unknown who took the initiative. Inside the dark glass window, the 2 people's lips gradually approached and finally touched each other. Chapter 736. 5 senses obscured. After sending Zai Xiaoyu home, Jiang Chen drove alone on the road in the suburbs of Koro. Recalling the scene just now, the corners of his mouth could not help but curl up a faint smile, or a silly smile. He subconsciously touched his lips, where he could still feel a trace of residual warmth. He knew very well how Zai Xiaoyu felt about him, and he had made up his mind to face this feeling a long time ago. However, too many things happened during this period, so that neither of them took that step, but maintained this relationship on the edge of ambiguity. Perhaps it was because of the watery moonlight, or perhaps it was because of the atmosphere. When he kissed Zai Xiaoyu on the lips, he did not feel resistance, but felt the heat coming from her thin lips, and the hungry demands that gradually began. Unfortunately, the 2 did not take that last step after all. When Jiang Chen's hand was on her waist, Zai Xiaoyu refreshed herself. With the last bit of reason left, she told him, that she did not want to do that before getting married. After understanding this, Jiang Chen did not force it, but patiently stopped the action at the last step. Although she rejected Jiang Chen, Xia Xiaoyu did not push him away. Instead, she said, "I'm sorry. I can't give it to you. It's okay." Staring at the eyes with a hint of intoxication and apology, Jiang Chen smiled. "I should apologize. I can't promise you, but I kissed you." A hint of hesitation flashed in her eyes, and Xia Xiaoyu bit her lower lip and whispered, "That, it's very uncomfortable." "Uncomfortable? I heard that if boys don't solve it, it will be very uncomfortable. Probably. A little." When Jiang Chen said this, he felt embarrassed for lying. However, Xia Xiaoyu, who had never been in love, believed his lies and thought that he was really trying hard to endure it for her. "Then, I'll help you get it out, and you won't feel uncomfortable after getting it out." "Well, wait, what did you say? Don't make me say it again." "Damn it." Xia Xiaoyu gritted her teeth and punched Jiang Chen hard. Then, she reached out to the bottle of mineral water in the compartment next to the driver's seat. Recalling the scene in the car just now, Jiang Chen's mouth couldn't help but rise up again, almost flying to his ears. Turn on the car radio, reach out to turn off the air conditioner, and lower the car window. Let the night breeze blow on your face, and the charming emotions will be blown away in the wind, drifting away with the melodious music. The lights on the roadside flew by, forming a gorgeous arc of light, and the palm leaves on both sides gradually became sparse, revealing the scenery beside the road. The scenery beside the road changed to the open sea. The villa at the southern end of the island is not far away. Follow this straight road forward and turn 2 blocks to see the villa complex at the southernmost end. And at this moment, Jiang Chen suddenly saw a person in the middle of the road. To be precise, it was a girl. The girl was wearing a white dress that swayed in the sea breeze. Her face was pale, but she had a sweet smile. She stood there smiling, standing in front of the curve, looking directly at Jiang Chen, who was coming from the front. Jiang Chen frowned slightly and reached out to press the horn. The horn sounded, but the girl remained indifferent. If she was not mentally ill, she could only be committing suicide. Thinking of this, Jiang Chen was about to break, but at this moment, he seemed to see a ray of light in the girl's eyes, piercing him directly. The eyes flashed with dazzling light, like an incandescent lamp, a flashlight, and a lighthouse on the coast. The light magnified in his field of vision and gradually filled his entire field of vision. Not only the vision was infected, but also the hearing, touch, and even the taste and smell. All 5 senses were obscured by the dazzling white light. At this moment, the car was traveling at 100 miles per hour. It was too late to brake. Fuck. With a low roar, Jiang Chen instantly turned on the frenzy, and then turned on the unparalleled. The obscured 5 senses did not return, but in the whiteness, his hands and feet moved on their own. He controlled the tools in his hands to the extreme, and responded to fighting and avoiding instinctively. Even though he could not see or hear, he pulled the handbrake, and slammed the steering wheel. Based on his remaining memory of the road conditions, the modified Lamborghini drew a beautiful arc on the road, and the tail wing just brushed the road guardrail, and stopped on the road after the bend. The obscuration of the 5 senses has stopped. The coastal highway was pitch black, as if it had never been illuminated. After releasing the invincible state, Jiang Chen gritted his teeth and unbuckled his seatbelt, and got out of the car with the rifle, taken out of the storage space. There is no doubt that the woman standing in the middle of the road is a so-called superpower. And just now, she used a power similar to mental shock on herself, who was driving on the straight road at a speed of 100 miles per hour. Instead of glowing eyes, stand there and don't move. Hold your head with your hands and squat down. I swear, I won't show mercy to women. At this moment, the two were 50 meters apart. Jiang Chen was not sure about the distance at which her ability could be activated, so he was very careful not to get close. He just held the rifle in his hand horizontally, and the crosshairs were firmly locked on her chest. As long as there was something wrong, he would pull the trigger and shoot her dead. After hearing Jiang Chen's warning, the girl was not afraid at all, but laughed. As expected of Mr. Jiang Chen, I thought you were dead. Who are you? Did the black ship send you? Jiang Chen frowned slightly. Judging from her face, the girl should be Asian. However, according to the list provided to him by Mitsuhiroto, the members of the black ship in Asia should have been hunted down and there should be very few left. Could there be a fish that slipped through the net that was not on the list? However, to Jiang Chen's surprise, the girl shook her head and looked over with a smile. No, I just want to avenge my parents. It's a pity. It seems that I failed. The words like a dream blew towards him with the sea breeze. Parents? Wait. Stop. Without giving Jiang Chen a chance to explain, the girl pulled out a dagger and stabbed herself in the heart. Blood gushed out of the girl's mouth and dripped down the corners of her mouth. Before she died, her eyes were fixed on Jiang Chen, and her lips opened and closed, as if she was reciting something. Or rather, cursing something. The sound of gunfire resounded in the night sky. The bullet pierced her head, and the girl fell silently on the cold road. After putting the rifle back into the storage space, Jiang Chen slowly closed his eyes. Until she died, he didn't know why she hated him, and was even willing to die for it. And all he could do was to end her pain. I can't stand those dirty-ass people in the group, so I wrote a hentai and put it in the V group sharing. I feel like my moral integrity has been lost. Covering my face. By the way, the group number is related to the work, and you can see it in the catalog. In addition, book friends who have not joined the group can also follow the WeChat public account lines. You should be able to see it by WeChat, adding the public account, and searching for. If the number of fans exceeds 5,000, I will put this chapter on the public account. In the future, I will add one chapter for every 1,000 followers, or one chapter of hentai. Friends who have WeChat, what are you waiting for? Move your fingers quickly, it will only take half a minute at most please. The comment function can be enabled only when there are enough fans. After the comment function is enabled, the public account will resume updating. Chapter 737 Please give me a name. The sun outside the window was very bright. Koro Island was particularly hot today. The air conditioner was turned on very high. Jiang Chen sat in the study, holding a novel in his hand and reading quietly. He rarely calmed down to read a book like this. Thanks to Asia, this elegantly decorated study never got dusty. Today, he really didn't feel like going out, nor did he feel like putting on the phantom helmet to play games, so he simply came to the study. While waiting for news from the ghost agent, he quietly read this novel that he had read halfway a year ago but never picked up. Cabbage and the King. He didn't try to guess the ending of the story because O. Henry's endings were always so unexpected. A gust of wind blew gently and Jiang Chen looked up. Aisha, wearing a maid outfit, had appeared at the door and walked to his side with light steps. The identity of the assassin has been found out. Her parents were members of the black ship and died in the pursuit of the ghost agent. At Jiang Chen's request, Aisha did not tell him the girl's name. After closing the book, Jiang Chen put it aside and asked softly, "What about her?" It has nothing to do with the black ship, but it is not ruled out that the black ship people found her later, gave her simple training, and instilled in her the concept of hatred. Aisha adjusted the wording and explained as concisely as possible. Is that so? Jiang Chen fell into deep thought. Hatred bred by hatred was also within his expectations. But he did not intend to change his mind. In any case, the Black Ship organization must die, and any excuse is not enough to be an anti-human argument. What's more, they are just struggling to survive. We can add a physical examination item to the entry inspection to monitor people with genetic codes. Aisha suggested. There are too many people carrying hidden genetic codes, even more than those who do not carry them. The difference between superpowers and ordinary people is only whether the genetic code is expressed explicitly. Jiang Chen said softly. Ghost agents have infiltrated various fields of the new country and monitor every phone call, every text message, and every 1 KB of data from the new country through artificial intelligence. However, it is almost impossible to ensure the identity security of every incoming passenger in a tourist country with a monthly passenger flow of more than hundreds of thousands. Compared with mercenaries using firearms, attacks by unarmed superpowers are sometimes more dangerous and more difficult to guard against. For example, the girl last night used mental attacks at a critical moment, which could kill people without being seen. Unfortunately, although these so-called superpowers are incredible, they are also within the scope of nature. Mutants like those in Marvel that can kill everything in seconds definitely do not exist. Biting her lower lip, Aisha buried her pretty face full of apology. I'm very sorry. It was my fault that you were assassinated last night. Don't be sorry. Please raise your head. Jiang Chen smiled. No one can predict what is about to happen. All we can do is to take precautions before it happens, not to prevent it before it is inevitable. Although Jiang Chen's words gave Aisha some comfort, the little girl still did not completely forgive her negligence. If she hadn't been there, at least there would have been a ghost agent accompanying Jiang Chen. Unfortunately, he and Xia Xiao were in such a good mood last night that ZHUU, who was protecting Jiang Chen, didn't dare to watch their passionate live broadcast and quietly left. No one expected such a coincidence. If ZHUU was nearby at the time, she would definitely kill the girl without hesitation. People with superpowers are also human beings. No matter what kind of superpowers they are, as long as they die, they will be fine. For this matter, Aisha scolded ZHUU severely. If it were her, she would definitely not avoid when Jiang Chen and Xia Xiao were doing something shameful, and she would even participate in it. Cough cough. Seeing that Aisha didn't speak, Jiang Chen paused for a moment and continued. What happened last night is nothing. My car has been modified. Even if I didn't brake and crashed into the sea, I would only suffer minor injuries at most. So, don't feel too guilty. In that world, I have seen more terrifying superpowers. More terrifying? Jiang Chen smiled and nodded. His superpowers have been unlocked to the 3rd level, and he can even wipe an entire province off the map. But in the end he still died under my lightsaber. Thanks to the subcrystals detonated by that guy named Boyu. Otherwise his storage space would not have transformed into a real universe. After hearing Jiang Chen's words, Aisha asked worriedly. Over there, is that world so scary? That's not the way to say it. Although the situation over there is very chaotic and terrible in various senses, fortunately there is a group of pretty good people, and now slowly order is being established. So, don't worry too much about me. If there is a chance, I will take you to see it over there. Although it's not a good place. As he said that, Jiang Chen smiled and reached out, touching Aisha's head. Yeah. Aisha murmured softly. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, Jiang Chen did not make the news of the assassination public, and the body of the girl was also taken to the end of the world by him for burial, and the traces of her existence were forever erased from this world. After a day of rest at home, he came to the group building as usual the next day. It was a little different from what he imagined. He originally thought that with Xia Xiao's thin skin, she would definitely avoid him for several days after experiencing such a shameful thing. However, the reality was beyond his expectations. Xia Xiao not only did not avoid him, but also took the initiative to sit opposite him during lunch. I don't know if it was Jiang Chen's illusion, but the relationship between the two of them has become closer. However, when they were eating, they still talked mostly about work. How is the preparation of future technology? What do you mean? Mixing the salad dressing and fruits and vegetables. Xia Xiao picked up a slice of tomato with a fork and put it into the cherry mouth. For some reason, Jiang Chen always felt that the bright red lips were very erotic when biting the tomato. Maybe because the salad dressing was white. Mobile phone. Jiang Chen cut a piece of meat from the steak and used chewing to hide his momentary embarrassment. Futureman Heavy Industry has delivered samples. Judging from the product quality, it is definitely worthy of the concept of next generation. In addition, I have also seen Ninghua Jian's planning proposal, and the promotion and sales channels under Futureman Technology have also been prepared. All the work is ready, and now there is only one last thing left. What is it? Xia Xiao smiled slightly, and rarely used a joking tone. Please give it a name, Chairman. Chapter 738 Incredible Cell Phone. Downstairs of the Future Man building, reporters from major newspapers and media gathered in a circle. Security personnel gestured to each other and pulled up orange-yellow cordons to guide these excited people to the right place to prevent accidents such as pushing and trampling. Future Man Technology held a product launch conference, and Jiang Chen will be there to preside over it. Outside the venue, you can see fully armed starring trade soldiers, helicopters hovering in the air, snipers deployed on the distant buildings, and beehives of hummingbird drones lurking in hidden places. In terms of security level, the specifications of this conference are definitely higher than the president's speech. This conference has been planned since the beginning of the year. From the first announcement that it would enter the mobile device manufacturing industry, to the breakthrough in graphene technology and the acquisition of Japanese electronics companies, FutureMan Technology has been preparing for this day for a long time. And for the arrival of this day, both the media and the public are full of expectations. What kind of shocking products will FutureMan Technology, which has always been committed to laying out the forefront of science and technology, come up with? As early as 3 days before the launch, major social platforms and forums had already started to discuss it. And FutureMan Technology also fanned the flames by hanging a black silhouette of a mobile phone on its official website, with 3 mysterious greetings and a countdown to the launch of the launch. At that time, the official website will cooperate with the cooperative media New Country Radio and Television to live broadcast the launch on the official website and TV station, and draw 100 lucky viewers to give it away for free. For the arrival of this day, FutureMan Technology has done enough gimmicks. Before the live broadcast began, layers of bullet comments were swiped on the black screen. Hurry up and announce it. Damn, I've been waiting for a week. You've only been waiting for a week, and you're so nervous. I've been waiting since the year before last. Idiot, what did you know the year before last? FutureMan Technology first announced its plan to enter the mobile device market at the beginning of last year. There should be a limit to how much you can pretend to know. When will the lottery be open? Can it be posted here? Behind the scenes of the press conference, Jiang Chen sat back in a chair, crossed his legs, and looked at the official website of FutureMan Technology through the holographic screen of his watch. A smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Before the live broadcast started, the number of online viewers had already jumped to 11 million, and it was constantly refreshing. At the same time, the official website of FutureMan Technology has been attacked by hackers no less than 100,000 times since morning. However, with the combination of artificial intelligence firewalls and quantum computing, the hacker who can break through the defense of FutureMan Group should not be born yet. This Ninghuo Jian is really capable. I, a nominal chief designer, am looking forward to it. Xia Xiao stood by the curtain with her arms folded. Seeing Jiang Chen's calm appearance, she coughed lightly. Are you ready? Don't worry. It's not the first time. Jiang Chen smiled, turned off the holographic screen of his watch, stood up, and looked at Xia Xiao. How long will it take? 35 minutes. It looks like it will take a while. I'll go to the bathroom first. Waving his hand, Jiang Chen walked towards the bathroom. 30 minutes before the press conference started, reporters and special guests were allowed to enter. The venue of thousands of square meters suddenly became crowded with a continuous influx of people. It had been rehearsed countless times, and the staff skillfully maintained order on the scene. The venue was bustling with people. Before it started, reporters were either checking their speeches or whispering with their colleagues to get information. Judging from the enthusiasm of the venue, people who didn't know would think it was a concert held by a rock star. Suddenly, the lights on the stands came on, and the entire venue fell silent. The reporters carrying cameras all turned their lenses to the stage, and the slowly opening curtain caught the heartbeats of everyone present. The lights gathered towards the center of the stage, and Jiang Chen walked out from behind the scenes, standing in front of the stage amid thunderous applause and cheers. The giant screen behind him flashed the logo of FutureMan Technology. With his first opening remarks, it spread into countless light particles that spread on the screen, interlaced into 12 languages. Real-time translation. One of FutureMan's black technologies. Thank you to all the reporters and special guests for visiting, as well as the audience watching the live broadcast on the internet and TV. Thank you for your continued support and expectations for FutureMan Technology. Please believe me, I will definitely not let you down. Jiang Chen said his opening remarks with a smile. Xia Xiao, who was standing backstage, had already held her breath. In just 2 minutes, the number of online viewers counted by the official website has exceeded 100 million. Looking at the wide eyes and the expectation in their pupils, Jiang Chen paused for 2 seconds, then smiled and stretched out his hand. Future. When Jiang Chen pronounced this word, the reporters were obviously stunned and did not react to what he meant. It was not until the beam of light shone on Jiang Chen's hand that they could see the piece of paper in his hand. Yes, it looked like a piece of paper. When the phone named Future appeared on the big screen behind Jiang Chen, as well as its thickness, length, width, pixels, CPU and other parameters, everyone's eyes almost popped out of their heads in surprise. 0.1 millimeters. Almost as thick as an A4 paper. Is this really a phone? Exclamation mark. Almost everyone had the same thought in their minds. This is unscientific. However, Jiang Chen then proved to them what real science is with his actual actions. From the display to the shell, the Future phone is made entirely of graphene materials, so it is very thin, very light, very soft, and almost transparent. Jiang Chen said, loosening his hand. Under the gaze of everyone, the paper-thin phone fell from his palm to the ground, and the reporters who were closer to the stand stretched their necks. He was sure that he didn't even hear the sound of the phone falling to the ground, nor could he see where the phone fell. So the question is, since it is transparent, what should I do if the phone falls accidentally? After seeing this scene, most people had this question in their minds. The live broadcast screen of the official website was almost flooded with similar questions. However, the audience did not take this question to heart for a long time, and Jiang Chen quickly answered the question. I know what you are worried about, such as whether this phone falling to the ground means you will lose it forever. Next, I will tell you that your worries are completely unnecessary. Jiang Chen bent down, picked up the piece of paper from the ground, and shook it towards the audience. When the phone enters standby mode, the fluorescent material built into the graphene material will outline the outline of the phone screen with lines and display the time in the center of the screen. Of course, if you don't like it to display the time anytime and anywhere, you can also cancel this function in the settings. Holding up the Future phone, Jiang Chen folded it in half and bent it into an arc amid the incredible exclamations of the people, showing people its powerful shaping function. The graphene material is very soft. You can bend it into a circle and wear it on your wrist like a watch, or fold it and put it in your wallet, roll it up and put it in a cigarette box, or even fold it into a paper airplane and throw it into your neighbor's house. Of course, I don't recommend you to do this. Friendly laughter came from the audience. At this point, everyone thought that the functions of this first graphene mobile phone had been introduced. Some reporters have already started to organize their notes and think about what questions to ask later. Just based on the function of arbitrary folding, this mobile phone is worthy of the title of Future and worthy of the expectations of countless people for nearly a year. However, when everyone was thinking so, Jiang Chen smiled slightly and spoke again. However, the above functions are not the focus of my introduction today. Jiang Chen smiled mysteriously and shook the Future mobile phone on his wrist that was rolled into the shape of a watch. His expression was like that of a magician. Now, let's witness the miracle together. Chapter 739. The Madness of 100 Million per Minute. Catherine couldn't believe her eyes. She had been a reporter for so many years and attended hundreds of Silicon Valley product launches, but this was the first time she was so surprised by the same product so often. When Jiang Chen on the stage rolled up his phone into a watch and put it on his wrist, a light that seemed to be a physical object appeared on his palm. Everyone held their breath. Holographic image. No, it was not just a holographic image. She saw Jiang Chen's finger on the full image and operated the phone by touching the holographic screen. The screen suspended in the air was like a physical entity, and the transparent operating interface was simple but beautiful. Holographic interactive technology. And it was a holographic interaction that was completely separated from the physical interface. She didn't know what words to use to describe the shock in her heart at the moment. She took a peek at her colleague's notes and saw that the chief reporter of the Observer Daily next door was shaking with the pen tip between his fingers. It took him a long time to write a word. Incredible. Yes. Perhaps only the word incredible can explain the shock in the hearts of the audience. Because what she saw was so shocking, Catherine's jaw was in a state of being unable to close for the rest of the press conference. It can stand by for 24 hours after being fully charged. It uses the Deep Blue M1 processor chip designed by Future Heavy Industry, and its performance is equivalent to twice that of mobile phones of the same price on the market. Because the mobile phone itself is already thinner than the USB interface, Future Heavy Industry has specially designed a wireless charger to charge the mobile phone. In addition, Future will completely abandon the design of wired headphones and directly configure the original headphones as Bluetooth headphones. The external speaker and headphone mode can be switched with one click through the switch on the headphones or the mobile phone. Abandoning the original SIM card design, the Future mobile phone adopts the concept of virtual death card similar to that proposed by Apple and Samsung as early as 2015. However, due to the impact on the business of operators, this function is temporarily unavailable in some countries. Instead, Future Technology has added a SIM card scanning function to the mobile phone. In addition to these amazing functions, Future will also launch different styles such as Deep Space Gray, Snowflake Silver, Rose Gold, Gay Purple, etc., to provide the most distinguished service to distinguished users. Well, in fact, there is no difference between different styles. Graphene is transparent. The only difference between these different styles is the fluorescent material mixed in it, that is, the color of the screen frame and the standby clock, and the selling price. Among them, the basic colors such as orange and blue are the cheapest, with a direct selling price of $950 before tax, while the price of the gold version is as high as $1,100, which is $150 higher. By the way, these money-making tricks are all learned from Apple. Jiang Chen, the nominal chief designer, himself can't figure out what the difference is between light pink and rose gold. However, the bullet comments on the official website, live broadcasts have exploded. According to Jiang's data analysis statistics, 70% of users have a strong desire to consume rose gold. Future, let us welcome the future together. With Jiang Chen's pun-filled closing remarks, the introduction session of this product launch conference came to an end. Reporters came forward one after another, aiming their long guns, short guns and microphones at Jiang Chen. Mr. Jiang, is Future positioned as a high-end phone? I'd like to ask if your designers have considered that the price of $950 is probably unacceptable to most middle-income people, especially consumers in developing countries. Future is positioned as a high-tech product. We don't want to label it as a low-end or high-end phone. Spending $950 on an iPhone the 8th of May hurt you, but I promise that after buying Future, you will only feel that it is worth the money. Jiang Chen said. The eyes of the reporters on the scene lit up, and they wrote a few notes on the notebook with their ballpoint pens. At the press conference, Jiang Chen, chairman of Future Group, ridiculed the price of Apple 8 as too expensive and completely incompatible with its pitiful functions. Fighting and gossip are always more attractive than the product itself, and Jiang Chen didn't care about his exaggeration. After all, this is also a kind of hype. Mr. Jiang, when will Future be put on sale? Mr. Jiang, there are rumors online that you and Emma Watson. The 2-hour question session passed quickly, but the enthusiasm of the reporters in the venue did not diminish at all. When Jiang Chen walked out of the reporter's encirclement, his body, which had been injected with genetic drugs, felt a little overwhelmed. Pushing the door and walking into the backstage preparation room, Jiang Chen sat down on a chair and let out a long breath. Sun Jiao came over with a glass of water. Jiang Chen took the water and drank it all in one breath. I'm so tired. I don't know where those reporters got so many questions from. Although he was complaining, Jiang Chen had a smile on his face. The popularity of the Future product launch conference has, to some extent, reflected the market's expectations for this product. It is foreseeable that on the day of Future's release, it is inevitable that it will be out of stock. Do you know? The peak number of viewers of the live broadcast just now exceeded 1 billion. Sun Jiao smiled as she stood by with her arms folded. 1 billion! Exclamation mark. After hearing this number, Jiang Chen couldn't help but secretly gasp. Even though he was confident that Future would be popular, he was still shocked by this number. 1 billion online users watched it. Fortunately, the official website's server is a quantum computer, otherwise the terrifying number of visitors would have blown up the Future Technology official website. Based on the online user hype, we have drawn a list of 200 lucky users and have now distributed prizes based on the addresses they filled in. In addition, the official website sales link was opened 10 minutes ago and the 200,000 stocks were sold out within a minute. With the current production efficiency of the new Malaysia Special Zone, the average profit of a future mobile phone is $600 and all 200,000 mobile phones are sold. In other words, in just 1 minute, Future Group made a crazy profit of $120 million. This is too scary. The Federal Reserve's money printing machine can't be this fast. Let Future Heavy Industry adjust its production capacity and increase the monthly output to 4 million pieces within 2 months, and to 9 million pieces by the end of this year. I have already ordered someone to do it. Sun Jiao nodded, pushed the glasses on the bridge of his nose, and then said, in addition, 5 companies including Samsung and Foxconn submitted letters of intent for cooperation to us, expressing their willingness to negotiate with us on the future mobile phone foundry agreement to help us expand production capacity. What is their proposal? They are willing to manufacture 13 equipment such as our Deep Blue M1 chip, graphene screen, mobile phone battery, etc., which is expected to save $79 in costs. And it will be able to increase our production capacity to 5 million pieces per month in a short period of time. Sun Jiao said. Jiang Chen pondered for half a minute, tapped his index finger lightly on the table, and then spoke. Future Group has no idea of OEM for the time being, just reply to them like this. Okay, I'll edit the ML later. Sun Jiao nodded. Sun Jiao also opposed outsourcing, but she still had to consult Jiang Chen, the chairman, about this matter. In order to build a complete set of electronic industrial production lines in the Singapore-Malaysia Special Economic Zone, Future Heavy Industry has invested $2 billion. Although OEM can reduce product costs to the lowest level and increase the output of mobile phones in a short period of time through large-scale production, the side effect of this is also obvious, that is, it leads to technology outflow. Although the legal team of Future Group has registered patents in various countries for 21 components including the Deep Blue M1 chip, the production process of these electronic devices by Future Heavy Industry remains at the level of commercial secrets. If it is made public, it means that OEM companies will also have these production technologies. It's not so difficult for companies that don't have their own products. For a large company like Samsung, that not only does OEM, but also makes its own mobile phones, it can use the technology it has obtained to develop its own graphene mobile phones. At that time, it will at most pay Jiang Chen a patent fee. For the Future Group, this is undoubtedly a loss. With the protection of patent barriers and technical barriers, the Future Group can maintain its market monopoly hegemony to the maximum extent. Chapter 740 Monopolizing the Future. Cupertino, California, is home to the Apple spaceship headquarters. This 2.8 million square foot circular building is like a castle belonging to the Apple empire. In Steve Jobs' own words, the new building is like a landed spaceship, while the American media likened it to a giant glass donut. At this moment, 48 hours have passed since Future Technology held the Future Mobile Phone Conference. Apple CEO Tim Cook sat in his office, leaning back in his office chair in silence. This is the first time he has been so worried about the company's prospects since Jobs' death. By the way, in just 2 days, Apple's market value has evaporated by $20 billion. Wall Street analysts believe that Future Technology's announcement to enter the mobile phone manufacturing industry will change Apple's monopoly in the mid to high-end smartphone field. Facing the future mobile phone, Cook pessimistically discovered that Apple 8 has no advantages except price. For Apple 8, which is positioned in the high-end market, this is undoubtedly very ironic. Looking at the future in his hand, Tim Cook sighed. Even his competitor had to admit that the design of Future was perfect, especially the holographic screen function, which was simply irresistible. If he was not worried about the media fanning the flames, he would have wanted to buy himself a new phone. There was a knock at the door. Putting Future aside, Cook said listlessly, "Come in." The door opened, and his assistant Bernard Bellman came in. As soon as he stepped into the door, the assistant spoke. "2 pieces of news, one good and one bad. Which one do you want to hear first?" "It's an old joke," Tell me which one you think will make me feel better. Cook waved his hand. Bellman looked a little embarrassed. After hesitating for a moment, he spoke. The product development department reverse engineered the future phone. Combined with the documents we got from the US Intellectual Property Office, we have almost analyzed their technology. Oh. Cook's eyes lit up, and he sat up, crossing his fingers on the table. How long will it take to apply it to our iPhone 9? No, it can't be called iPhone 9. The epoch-making products series must be renamed. It's called iPhone N1, sir. Bellman spoke awkwardly, interrupting Cook's fantasy in a low voice. What's wrong? There's another bad news, right? Cook said, it doesn't matter. How much patent fee do they plan to charge? If the price is too high, we can sue them. It's not a matter of patent fees. Bellman gritted his teeth and finally made up his mind to speak. Although we have analyzed the technology, how to mass produce their parts, none of our foundry factories can do it. Cook was stunned for a moment, then leaned back in his chair with a wry smile. I knew it. Why did future heavy industry start to enter the electronics industry in a high-profile manner at the beginning of the year and acquire a series of electronic equipment production companies from screen design to cameras? Integrating graphene technology, they built a whole set of production lines from scratch. They were ambitious from the beginning. They were not dominating the smartphone industry, but they were trying to monopolize the entire graphene industry from the source. Future? Welcome the future together? It would be more appropriate to say it another way. Monopolize the entire future. Because of limited production capacity, the price of future has even been raised more than 10 times on the black market in some countries. However, despite this, future phones are still unsellable. Messages seeking to buy future phones can be seen everywhere on major forums, just like when the Phantom Helmet was released. Whether in terms of style or practicality, this phone that can be held in the hand, put into the wallet, and project holographic images has taken the limelight. Coupled with the marketing of Futureman technology and omni-channel promotion, it has added fuel to the fire. It is for this reason that Future has won the favor of young men and women as soon as it was launched. I want to buy a Future phone for 10,000 yuan. If you want it, please send me a private message. Contact information, XXXX. The above poster, if you are talking about US dollars, I might consider it. My little sister is 18 this year and wants a Future phone. Which good brother can fulfill my wish? Can we have a video chat first? Some weird people directly tagged Jiang Chen's Weibo and threw all kinds of selfies without any traces of PS or stolen pictures. They asked for hookups and hidden rules just for a Future. Jiang Chen, who is so shameless, was speechless. Not only is the sales of Future phones hot, but the mobile terminal processor designed by Future Heavy Industry, the Deep Blue M1 chip, has also been favored by major mobile phone manufacturers. Within a month, Future Heavy Industry received a full 2 million chip orders. If it were not for the priority of meeting the needs of Future phones, the Deep Blue M1 chip alone would make Future Group a lot of money. There are also graphene screens, with many characteristics such as lightness, drop resistance and high toughness. The graphene screen can be said to have completely defeated the most advanced OLED screen at present, and become the most promising display screen material in the future. More than a dozen companies, including Apple, Samsung and other smartphone giants, which are rivals of Future technology, have placed orders with Future Heavy Industry, hoping to upgrade the screens of their mobile phones. Jiang Chen did not make things difficult for these competitors. On the premise of meeting the production capacity of Future mobile phones, he did not mind letting these competitors help him digest the excess production capacity. After all, the more you produce, the lower the cost can be. Is there anything more pleasant than using the money earned from the opponent to expand and improve the production line and strengthen their own strength? The most important thing is that they have to pinch their noses and admit it. The patent is in Jiang Chen's hands. Do you want to develop it yourself? Okay, every time you produce a screen, battery, chip, and patent fees, the cost of your mobile phone will explode directly. Moreover, the product designed independently at a cost of more than $1 billion may not be comparable to Future Heavy Industry, which has more mature graphene technology. In the end, they still have to buy the screens, chips, and batteries from Future Heavy Industry. As for the most critical interactive holographic projection components, which are the main selling point of future technology's mobile phones, Jiang Chen said that he would never sell them to competitors. Monopoly? Unfair competition? Haha, if you have the guts, come to Singapore to sue me. The high-tech equipment is completed in the high-tech park of Angia Island. In addition to supplying it to future technology, it will not enter the market at all. If you want to copy the interactive holographic projection technology, then take the patent documents and slowly study it yourself. Don't think about the production process without 5 years. And after 5 years, Jiang Chen doesn't need to keep this technology in his pocket. When more powerful technology is brought out, these outdated technologies can be packaged and sold directly. This is the benefit of having an advantage in technology. Others can only pick up what you have left, and they have to swallow it with a pinched nose. With the technology from the end of the world as a guarantee, at least in the next 100 years, Jiang Chen doesn't have to worry about being overtaken by technology. As for 100 years later, it's too far away. Jiang Chen doesn't want to think about it for the time being. If he cannot overcome the crisis 20.5 light years away, not to mention his future human group, it will be a question whether the Earth civilization on this timeline can continue. Chapter 741 Penglai City completed. 2018, the first VR product exhibition jointly organized by Walmart and Futureman Technology, which attracted worldwide attention, officially opened under the expectation of all. For a full 4 months, hundreds of thousands of products were exhibited on stage, covering a variety of fields such as small handicrafts, large-scale electromechanical, food, clothing, housing and transportation, and more than 76,000 exhibitors. Among them, the most eye-catching product is undoubtedly the Mercedes-Benz S750e launched by Daimler Group, which uses the wireless rechargeable solid lithium-air battery designed by Futureman Heavy Industry, combining power and beauty. Although it is not a special auto show, this kind of advanced gadgets always make people linger. Many ordinary tourists who can't afford a car can only indulge in the virtual world, so Daimler Group's Mercedes-Benz S750e successfully set a record for the highest number of views. In addition, the product exhibition with the highest technological content is undoubtedly the exhibits of Futureman Heavy Industry. For example, the improved household robot, the Dragoon X1 supercomputer chip, the Deep Blue M1. On the first day of the exhibition, Futureman Heavy Industry won an order worth $5 billion. According to the data released by Future Group afterwards, the total transaction volume of the global commodity exhibition easily exceeded $20 billion in the first month of its opening. If this trend continues, this year's global commodity exhibition will easily break the record of previous transaction volumes. After attending the opening ceremony of this grand event, Jiang Chen took off his helmet. Although he is the founder of the virtual reality network, he himself enjoys the feeling of living in reality more. As the chairman of the group, all he needs to do at the opening ceremony is to read the opening speech written by his secretary and shake hands with representatives of major companies. After shaving his beard with Asia's help and changing into casual clothes, Jiang Chen went out. Today is an important day, not only the opening ceremony of the VR commodity exhibition, but also the completion ceremony of Penglai City. On the sea north of Koro Island, 2 Guardian-class frigates modified with electromagnetic guns have been patrolling the target sea area accompanied by Kilo-class submarines. Dozens of large engineering ships are lined up along the edge of the construction sea area, forming a loose circle. Numerous yachts and speedboats of all sizes were lined up nearby. Some of them were wealthy tourists visiting Koro Island, some were investors or immigrants who had purchased properties in Penglai City, and some were reporters invited by Future Group. A Black Hawk helicopter belonging to Starring Trade hovered over the sea, carrying staff to conduct a final inspection of the construction site. Aurora -20 suddenly broke through the clouds and whistled past, attracting cheers and whistles from tourists and reporters. Today was a fine day, with no signs of a storm within 100 miles. It was a good day to hold a completion ceremony. On a cruise ship, tourists in beachwear and bikinis leaned against the railings, looking out at the calm sea. Shit, that fighter is so cool. I heard it's called Aurora 20. I wonder which one is better, the F-35 or the Aurora 20. I'm more concerned about where Penglai City is. If I'm not mistaken about the date, it should be today. A city on the sea, the Atlantis of the East, it's so romantic. Honey, can we live there in the future? Okay, baby, you have the final say if the future group doesn't default on its promise. Look, the sea is moving. With a cry of surprise, everyone stopped joking and looked at the sea. Yes, the sea is moving. Bubbles as big as beans gushed out from the seabed, and the sea surface within a radius of dozens of miles was rolling with turbid bubbles, even covering the rolling waves. After about 2 minutes, the rolling bubbles stopped. The sea level rose suddenly, and a small hill with a radius of hundreds of meters was lifted up by force. Then, the seawater spread out in all directions, and the ships and yachts surrounding the outer circle were like leaves in the waves, scattered by the suddenly rising tide. The closer ships even tilted at a 45-degree angle. The ship is going to fall. A tourist huddled beside the cabin and screamed, "What the hell? It's not leaking or capsizing. How can it fall? Look. Over there. Penglai City has emerged. What do I see? Virgin Mary. Buddha. Oh my god. Like a sharp steel blade, the steep obelisk-like building emerged from the sea like a magic needle that stabilizes the sea. Then, metal buildings with a radius of hundreds of meters rose up with the water surface, and high-rise buildings emerged from the water surface at a speed visible to the naked eye, like bamboo shoots after rain. The lifted seawater fell from the top of the building, forming a natural waterfall, covering the face of Penglai City like covering one's face with a veil. Seawater fell to the surface of the sea, and white mist was stirred up in a radius of 100 miles. The wind blew gently, and the white mist waves moved with the wind, dancing seductively on the sea. Steel split the waves, and layers of waves surged in all directions. The waves hit the side of the ship, making a dull sound like a heavy hammer hitting steel. Standing on this towering and motionless Guardian-class frigate, Jiang Chen squinted his eyes and looked at the rise of this city through a telescope. The main building has been raised. Unlock the stability lock, and the second step will rise. The rise is complete, and the graphene pipeline is connected. Drain gate. Like a gyroscope, the circular main building is stable on the water surface. Then the ring of the foam aluminum structure rose, and the graphene pipeline stretched out from the hole, accurately penetrated the side of the central island, and formed this circular artificial giant island. The seawater poured into the building surged onto the street, washing the shells, conches, and seaweed on the street into the sea, forming a waterfall on the edge of the island. After completing the island floating operation, the staff immediately opened the pressure valve at the bottom of the island to discharge the seawater poured into the drainage and water supply system. Is this Penglai City? Although it is not as beautiful as in virtual reality, it always feels much more shocking than what I saw in virtual reality. Xia Xiao sighed as she stood next to Jiang Chen. Aisha did not speak, but Jiang Chen could still read the shock in her sapphire eyes. As for Natasha, as a Russian diplomat, she was lowering her head at the moment, and it was unknown what she was thinking. Don't worry, I bet it will be as beautiful as the one in virtual reality, Jiang Chen said with a smile, while looking at the city from afar. The most critical and most likely to go wrong work of floating the main building has been completed, and Jiang Chen's clenched hands finally relaxed. The drainage work will take 2 full days, and the next step is to fill other structures between the outer ring and the central island. These structures are like building blocks, which have been built on the seabed and only need to be put together step by step. This will take about 5 days. After completing all the work, the rest is the general cleaning. The staff wearing protective clothing will be the first to land on the island, driving garbage trucks to clean up seaweed, shells, jellyfish, shrimps and other small things from house to house. During the floating process, Penglai City brought up a lot of local specialties from the seabed, and now the entire artificial island is full of strong sea smell. If the garbage is not cleaned up, I'm afraid no one will be willing to live on this island. This seemingly simple cleaning work is the most time-consuming and laborious part of the entire floating work. It is expected that the future group will use 1,000 violins, 2,000 cleaning staff, 6,000 cleaning drones, 50 garbage trucks and water tankers to complete the entire cleaning work, which is expected to take 1 month. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 742 Century Project. The scene of the completion of Penglai City was filmed into a video and went viral on major video sites such as YouTube. People's initial reaction was to suspect that it was a movie special effect until other onlookers uploaded their own videos one after another, and then people realized that this is not a movie, it is real. At the beginning, many experts and scholars claimed that this thing could not be built at all, and even if it was built, it would not float to the surface of the sea. Even if it floated to the surface of the sea, it would be broken into pieces by a few waves. Even the day before the completion ceremony of Penglai City, a half-baked professor of naval architecture stood up to show his presence. I tell you, this thing can't float at all. How do we build an island? Although this is knowledge in the field of construction, as a professor, I still know a little bit. Generally speaking, we have to enclose the sea first, then blow sand and fill reefs, build an island directly on the seabed, and then float it up. This is nonsense. I bet if this island doesn't sink, I'll eat a pound of shit. However, the next day, Penglai City successfully floated up, and I don't know how many experts' faces were swollen. When everyone pulled the professor out and asked him when he was going to eat, he stopped talking immediately. The breakthrough in materials science will bring about a series of chain reactions, which will be subversive to the changes in the construction and manufacturing industries. The tidal force that ordinary steel cannot withstand is not a problem in front of the more resilient graphene material. At the same time, the advantage of using graphene instead of metal materials as a stable structure is that there is no need to worry about seawater rust. As long as you don't sail on the Pacific Ring of Fire and you happen to encounter an underwater volcanic eruption, you don't have to worry about the graphene cable breaking. With the completion of Penglai City, the flow of people on Koro Island suddenly increased several times. Many hotels and rental houses were full, so that some people simply bought tents and set up beds on the roadside. The new Congress had to urgently discuss the Urban Management Act and regulate the phenomenon of setting up tents anywhere, which curbed this phenomenon. At present, flights between Penglai City and Koro City have been established, and a special line has been set up next to the passenger port to provide pickup and drop-off services for tourists who go to and from the island. At the same time, the island itself also has yacht garages and berths on the edge for tourists to dock their yachts or even sailboats and cruise ships. However, these channels for landing are temporarily closed. As for the reason, it is naturally because the cleaning work has not been completed. Although the future group explained the reason, people's curiosity and enthusiasm for Penglai City still gathered a dark crowd in front of the passenger port. Let me go up. I bought a house on it. Why can't I go up? A man wearing a brand name suit, who looked like a rich man, sputtered and asked why he couldn't go to the island yet. Sir, please wait patiently for Penglai City to open. We are now carrying out the final seaweed cleaning and desalination work. We hope to show the most beautiful Penglai City to you, rather than a semi-finished product. The receptionist explained to the tourists with a smile. She had repeated her words countless times. Regardless of whether such words can satisfy these impatient tourists, the future group will not let anyone in until the 1-month cleaning work is completed. In addition to the cleaning work, safety inspections will also be carried out simultaneously. For example, is there any water leak? Is there seaweed in the power unit? Are there cracks in the graphene cable? These are major matters related to the safety of more than 1 million people, and there is no room for carelessness. If it sinks again, after everyone comes up, it will be a complete mess. According to the statistics given by Sun Jiao, in order to build this Penglai City, the future group has spent a total of $31.7 billion, which is almost equivalent to the total amount of funds invested in overseas real estate by China's house speculation group in 15 years. It can be seen how much working capital this century project has occupied by the future group. If Penglai City is not built, Jiang Chen may have to seek help from Rothschild Bank or a listed subsidiary to ease the financial pressure. Corresponding to the high investment and high risk, the return on investment brought by the completion of Penglai City is also quite amazing. As early as the end of last year, Wall Street analysts estimated the value of Penglay City, and the final valuation was as high as a terrifying $400 billion US. Wow, what is the concept of $400 billion US? However, Buffett, a world-renowned investor, known as the stock god, directly stated, "I can't estimate the market value of Penglay City, just like I can't put a price on Los Angeles or Chicago, because that is not something that can be measured by money. It is a city, and as long as it exists, it can continuously create value. Compared with Penglay City, I would rather value the creator of this wonder, future-heavy industry. If this wonder can be replicated, then there is no doubt that it will become the most profitable company of this century." Jiang Chen has always refused to go public, which is probably the biggest regret of this century. As if he felt that his statement was not shocking enough, Buffett paused and added a sentence facing the media camera. "Yes, I mean, it is even more profitable than those who print money at the Federal Reserve." Just when everyone couldn't wait to go up to Penglay City to find out, except for the staff of Future Group, only Jiang Chen and others tasted it. But as Future Group explained to the public, there was nothing to see in Penglay City at this time. The streets were full of the smell of the sea, and hardened salt blocks could be seen everywhere on the road and walls. These salts are not just sodium chloride, they also contain ionized substances of potassium, magnesium, calcium and other elements. When exposed to the sun, these things crystallize out of the seawater. In order to wash away these residues that affect the appearance, Jiang Chen transferred a desalination platform with a daily processing capacity of 4 million tons from Future Heavy Industry, and deployed 2 ocean current generators on the seabed to power the desalination platform. Now, 10 days have passed since the island surfaced. Jiang Chen plans to go back to the apocalypse for the new year. The expeditionary army seems to have encountered some problems on Yizhao Island, so he plans to go there in person. After all, this is related to the space elevator and the trade route of Mac to the south. This trip will take at least a few days, and at most 2 months. If he doesn't take advantage of this time to go to the island, he won't be the first person to eat crabs when Penglay City opens to the public in March. In this way, Jiang Chen took Aisha, Xiaoyu, and Natasha, who had to follow him shamelessly. The 4 of them took a helicopter to the island and landed in the square in front of the central building in Penglay City. I think if these things are dried into salted fish, it will definitely be a lot of money. Standing at the door of the central building, Jiang Chen looked at the dead fish lying on the steps and sighed helplessly. "I don't know when these salted fish can be cleaned up. I heard that the World Environmental Protection Organization is preparing to make trouble for you," Natasha said teasingly, standing next to Jiang Chen. "Since the Blue Seagull, we have been in trouble. We can only say that they accidentally set the pace, and now the defenders of Mother Earth are targeting us. But do I care?" Jiang Chen said with a smile, kicking the salted fish aside. "Just like this salted fish." Chapter 743 Central Building. Penglay Central Building, with a height of 432 meters, stands in the center of the island as the tallest building in Penglay City, like a obelisk in a steel forest. The surface of the building is fully covered with graphene materials, and the steel skeleton is a graphene tube, which ensures the strength of the building. At the same time, the openings on the surface of the building rotate from the bottom to the top. This design can effectively reduce the lateral force of airflow in all directions on the building. After all, the wind on the sea is very strong, and these have been carefully considered by the designers. This building will be a comprehensive super high-rise building, mainly for municipal offices, while also providing exhibitions, hotels, sightseeing, entertainment, commerce, catering and other services. The room at the top of the building, as the tallest building in the entire Pacific Ocean, can easily overlook the entire Penglay City. Of course, as Jiang Chen's private property, this room is not accessible to ordinary people. With Aisha, Xiaoyu and Natasha, Jiang Chen took the sightseeing elevator directly to the highest floor, Jiang Chen's private room. Surrounded by transparent graphene floor-to-ceiling windows on all sides, it is as transparent as if the windows do not exist when looking from the inside. From the outside, one can only see the inky glass window. After walking out of the elevator, Jiao walked carefully to the side, reached out and touched the cool graphene French window, knocked on it gently, and exclaimed sincerely, "It's really amazing. Although I don't know the evaluation criteria for the world's wonders, this city can definitely be nominated as the 9th wonder of the world." After hearing Jiao's words, Jiang Chen chuckled and said nothing. Penglai City alone can be called the 9th wonder. If he builds the space elevator, the first true Tower of Babel in human history, won't the future group be able to soar to the sky? Only miracles that have been precipitated by history can be nominated. And as far as I know, 6 of the 8 wonders of the world have been destroyed. Natasha teased. Aisha has been standing beside Jiang Chen without saying anything, but from her azure eyes, Jiang Chen can see the reflection of the entire city in the shocking color. After taking photos, Jiang Chen uploaded them to his personal Weibo and Twitter. He walked around the central building with the 3 girls, then took a helicopter to leave the artificial island and returned to Koro Island. At present, the entire island is still in the cleaning stage, and the part below the sea level is even covered with sea urchins and algae. It will take a month for this dazzling pearl in the Pacific Ocean to show her true face to the world. At the same time as Jiang Chen landed on the island, at least 5 spy satellites in the world aimed their lenses at this island in the western Pacific Ocean, and together with him, they spied on the full picture of this artificial island. As early as the first day of the completion of Penglai City, countries around the world have set their sights on this giant city on the sea. What does it mean to be able to build a city on the ocean? This means that the crowded living space on land will be completely released to the ocean. Those countries with extensive territorial waters but scarce land resources will be expected to obtain opportunities to develop marine living resources through orders from future human-heavy industry. At present, 27 countries have listed the offshore city plan as a national key scientific research project. 97 of the 150 coastal countries have begun to strengthen diplomacy with Singapore and have extended an olive branch to the future group. Although future heavy industry has not yet announced plans to sell offshore cities, since there is the first one, there will inevitably be a second one. The fact that there is no such plan now does not mean that there will be no such plan in the future. In short, it is absolutely right to establish good relations first. Affected by the rising expectations of offshore cities, the stock price of Gyeogs in Danshu rose again. As a supporting facility for offshore cities, the desalination platform plays an irreplaceable role. If Penglai City will kick off the development of marine resources, the desalination market will expand more than double. The offshore city built by future heavy industry will naturally be equipped with its own desalination equipment. There is no doubt about this. On the other hand, as Jiang Chen uploaded the photos taken on the top floor of the central building to Weibo and Twitter, his fans instantly climaxed, and they retweeted his Weibo and Twitter like crazy, and began to spread to other online platforms. That's so cool. I've decided that I must go to Penglai City after it opens. I've bought the tickets. Shit. The tickets to Koro Island in March are sold out. Fortunately, there are still a few boat tickets. It must be great to live in a floating city. Oh, damn. Why didn't I buy a suite there? It wasn't very expensive at the beginning. While those photos continued to ferment on the internet, major media also reprinted this group of photos with various eye-catching headlines and extended reports based on hearsay. Exclusive news, insider intelligence, and all kinds of gossip were leaked. According to Google Trends data, in just 12 hours, the number of hot searches for the word Penglai City worldwide exploded 17.5 times. It ranked first on the hot search list. From this point alone, we can see people's enthusiasm for Penglai City. From a business perspective, this is undoubtedly a successful marketing. Even if people have no interest in whether the city is on the sea or on land, they will be happy to take out the right money in their pockets and buy a ticket to Koro Island just for this city that has suddenly become the focus of the world. If there are still tickets left, of course, some experts and scholars have expressed concerns about the establishment of Penglai City. I admit that the establishment of Penglai City has a subversive impact on a series of fields such as architecture, ships, etc. But I also have to point out that the impact on the ecological environment of the Pacific Ocean will also be subversive. As we squeeze the living space of marine life, one day we will force these friends of mankind to a dead end. On behalf of Greenpeace, I question whether the behavior of Future Group in exploring marine resources is reasonable. The completion of Penglai City will undoubtedly intensify marine territorial disputes, especially in the South China Sea, at tsunamis, typhoons, submarine volcanic eruptions. For a city on the sea, these disasters are absolutely fatal. Before Penglai City proves that it has sufficient crisis response capabilities, I doubt the safety of living in this sea city. However, these opposing voices were eventually drowned out by the one-sided public opinion. The data released by the New Country Tourism Bureau and Future Travel are enough to prove this point. Many hotel rooms in New Country are booked until March, and even some relatively simple youth hostels are in short supply. For this reason, many international hotel groups such as Intercontinental, Marriott, and Hilton have announced plans to add hotels in Singapore next quarter to cope with the current situation of insufficient room supply. How long can this tourism feast last? At least before Penglai City officially opens in March, the carnival of the surge in tourists in the Panu Islands will not subside. However, Jiang Chen may not be able to witness the grand opening on the first day of the opening. The NAC Expeditionary Force on Jeju Island encountered a little trouble, and he had to go there in person for the upcoming delivery of the space elevator base parts. Chapter 744, The Month of Disaster. 2018 happened to be the day after Valentine's Day. Jiang Chen returned to the end of the world on Valentine's Day, February 14th. After spending a wonderful Valentine's Day with Sun Jiao, he spent the Spring Festival and New Year's Eve with the women and the subordinates of the Fishbone Base. On the second day of the Chinese New Year on the 17th, the time agreed with the White Whale Undersea Research Station arrived. Jiang Chen took the airship that transported supplies to Jeju Island. This time, Linling also went with him. It is said that there is a deuterium refinery in Taipei, Jeju Island, and a small nuclear fusion power station with a higher attention rate. Because of long-distance power transmission in the lunar helium-3 mining base, the nuclear fusion power stations on Earth before the station were basically transferred to the moon. The only remaining larger nuclear power stations were also baptized by nuclear strikes during the war. It is harder than climbing to the sky to find a complete nuclear fusion power station on this wasteland. So, when Jiang Chen heard that there was such a nuclear power station on Jeju Island, he immediately became interested in it, especially the supporting deuterium refinery. Although using deuterium as nuclear fuel is not as environmentally friendly as helium-3, now is not the time to be picky. For the 6th district, which has subcrystals as energy, nuclear power plants do not seem to be particularly attractive, but for the present world, especially for the new country, that relies entirely on imported energy, nuclear fusion power plants will have extraordinary value, especially the Penglai City that is about to open. If cold fusion technology can be used, among other things, the 100,000-acre seaweed power generation project originally planned to be added in the nearby sea area can be directly cancelled, and 12 large ocean current generator units and 150 wind turbines can also be cancelled. Not only that, it can also reduce the cost of electricity to a terrifying level. Of course, this technology can be used secretly, and it is better to wait until the space elevator is made public. There are only a few nuclear experts in the entire Wanghai city, and only Linling knows Jiang Chen's secret, so he took her with him. It just so happens that the work of the Garden of Eden is nearing completion. After the last project is completed in the spring, the Garden of Eden, which took more than a year to build, can be declared completed. The purpose of Jiang Chen's trip was to transport the base of the space elevator, recover nuclear technology, and solve the minor troubles encountered by the expeditionary force. It had been a month since the expeditionary force landed. When Jiang Chen arrived at Jeju Island, Li Wang, the captain, immediately arranged a clean and comfortable room for him, presented him with the intelligence and mission logs collected in the past month, and handed over the temporary command. As soon as he landed, Li Wang sent expeditionary soldiers to explore Taipei and its suburbs, and built a simple cement fortress and lighthouse on the sea cliff at the north end of Jeju Island, as well as an elevator for airships to dock. Compared with the war-torn inland, Aiju Island also suffered traces of war, but it was not as tragic as Wanghei City. It was not directly hit by a nuclear attack, and most of the high-rise buildings in the city were intact. The radiation that permeated the island was mostly from the radioactive dust blown from Southeast Asia. However, there was one thing here that was almost the same as on land. That was the deformed plants, and the hideous alien species and zombies. Vines and dry branches covered the high-rise buildings. The cracked road surface was dotted with bullet holes. In the shadows, there was a wolf-like creature with sharp beaks and claws. The soldiers of the Expeditionary Army called it gals. Any creature attacked by it would not even have much bones left. However, this was not the most terrifying thing. Although these gals were scary, 2 bullets would kill them. However, facing the mud crabs whose shells were as thick as steel, and whose moving speed was unambiguous, rifles were not so safe. Especially since these mud crabs moved in groups, it was simply a nightmare. And the troubles that these expeditionary forces encountered were related to these mud crabs. The next day, the patrol team exploring the island went out as usual, and returned to the camp before dark. Unlike usual, this time they also brought back a local. The guard searched behind him, displayed the **** and crossbows on his body for safekeeping, and then brought him to Jiang Chen. It was still snowing in the wasteland in February. Even in the southern island of Aiju, traces of snow could be seen. The man was wearing an old grey jacket, and had some dirty mud on his body. His skin was tanned and his head was shaved. He looked like an honest farmer, but his eyes, that looked around, revealed his shrewdness. "What's your name?" Jiang Chen looked at him. "I'm Chen Guangning, doing business in Taipei and the coastal areas of southern Fujian. If you need a guide, I will definitely be the most suitable person." Chen Guangning smiled honestly and said respectfully, "Other locals may not have heard of the name of Nak, but as a businessman who often goes to southern Fujian, he has heard of this name that rose in Wanghei City. In 2 years, he swept away all the major forces in Wanghei City with thunder, and took over the survivors' settlements in the entire Wanghei City and even Susao and Hangzhou province. The man in front of him is the leader of Nak. If he could get in touch with the Nak people, it would definitely be of great benefit to his business." So when the Nak expeditionary force came to the survivor settlement in Taipei to look for people, and the other survivors looked at each other and expressed distrust, he volunteered without saying a word, and came to the expeditionary force's fortress. Jiang Chen smiled and asked directly, "I will consider your suggestion. Before that, I have a question for you." "Excuse me, sir," Chen Guangning said respectfully. "Tell me the details of the month of disaster." Jiang Chen asked the question he was most concerned about. The so-called month of disaster is the name given by the locals to the landing of mud crabs. However, the Nak expeditionary force knew very little about this disaster that lasted for several months. The locals were very repulsive to this outsider, who suddenly broke into their homes. Although the two sides lived in peace and occasionally traded materials, the dialogue was still kept to a limited extent. Hearing Jiang Chen's question, Chen Guangling answered immediately. "Every March, mud crabs lurking in shallow waters will come ashore from the northeastern shore of Aiju Island to lay eggs. Usually at this time, Taipei survivors will hide in the air raid shelter in the center of Taipei City and wait until the mud crabs leave before coming out. The practice in other areas of Aiju Island is the same. The number of mud crabs is really beyond human power to resist, so it is called the month of disaster. As the strongest among scavengers, these mud crabs especially like places where survivors have lived. Whenever they come, they are like locusts passing through, destroying the settlements of survivors and leaving a lot of sticky follicles. Cleaning these follicles is very dangerous. If you are not careful, small mud crabs may have been successfully hatched inside, and destroying the follicles will also release those small mud crabs. Although not as scary as mature mud crabs, small mud crabs can still cause considerable casualties to survivors. How many months will this month of disaster end? Jiang Chen pondered. Generally speaking, it's the summer solstice. Chen Guangning replied. Summer solstice? That's more than 3 months later. The first batch of materials for the space elevator base is about to be delivered, and Jiang Chen doesn't want to wait that long. On the other hand, due to the influence of the disaster month, the exploration of the nuclear power plant will have to be delayed. If possible, He wants to solve these two things as soon as possible. Frowning slightly, Jiang Chen asked again. For these mud crabs, do you have any solution? Chen Guangning smiled helplessly. If I could think of a solution, I would have become the leader of these survivors long ago. Chapter 745 Build a defense line. The best way to deal with Calamity Moon is to wait for it to pass. It's better to clean up the eggs of mud crabs than to fight them head on. Even tanks can't do anything if tens of thousands of mud crabs surround us. Since you came here by airship, it shouldn't be a problem to hide on the airship until early March, or just wait until the summer solstice, right? We need to do something on the island, so we can't wait that long. After a pause, Jiang Chen continued, what about you? Calamity Moon, what are your plans? My original plan was to stay in the survivor settlement in Minnan province until the summer solstice, but my ship had a minor problem this year. If no one is willing to give me a ride, I might choose to go to Taipei Shelter number 79. It only costs 50 subcrystals to stay until the summer solstice, which is a fair price. Chen Guangning replied. Okay, Mr. Chen, we just happen to be in need of a guide, so I wonder if you are interested in staying with us? Jiang Chen asked with a smile. Hearing Jiang Chen's invitation, Chen Guangning was overjoyed and immediately said, I'm very interested. If there's anything I can do for you, I'd be happy to help. Just be a good guide. There's nothing else you need to do. Go out and tell the guards. They'll arrange accommodation for you. I'll pay you 10 crystals a day. If you don't have any other opinions, you can go down. Thank you, Marshal. Chen Guangning changed his address very politely, but Jiang Chen himself was not very interested in these red tapes, so he waved his hand and said, go ahead. After Chen Guangning walked away, Jiang Chen pondered for a moment, then turned his head slightly and looked at Li Wang who was standing at attention beside him. What do you think? According to the intelligence collected by our reconnaissance team, we can build a defense line with cement on the northern Despair Beach and encircle the mud crabs in the shallows. Li Wang said decisively. Jiang Chen nodded. This is indeed a feasible plan. The only flaw is that, if you want to build a defense line that surrounds the entire Despair Beach, the amount of cement and ammunition you need may not be a small amount. Sand can be obtained locally, and the graphene tubes and cement used as the skeleton can be transported by supply airships. The only trouble is that it is already February 18th, and there is less than a week left before the arrival of the month of disaster. The expeditionary force does not have much time. The required ammunition and cement will be delivered as soon as possible. You will start construction immediately and do everything possible to complete the defense line before the month of disaster. Yes. Li Wang stood at attention and saluted and immediately took the order and left. After Li Wang left, Jiang Chen turned on his watch, entered the communication screen and channel password left to him by the White Whale Undersea Research Station, and held a holographic video conference with them. Wu Yu was still in charge of contacting him. Judging from the background behind him, he should be on the warship at this moment. After the contact was established, Jiang Chen got straight to the point. Can the sonar equipment on your ship drive away mud crabs? Wu Yu seemed to know the reason why Jiang Chen asked this, but still shook his head regretfully. Unfortunately, our sonar can't do that. Encountering mud crabs in the shallow sea is indeed a headache. They will try to climb onto the ship. Should we postpone the delivery of the space elevator parts? Jiang Chen shook his head. Let's stick to the original plan. You are responsible for sending our transport ship to the shallow sea first. I will find a way to solve the mud crab problem. As you wish. Wu Yu nodded slightly. Despair Beach is located at the northernmost tip of Iju Island and is the lowest point in the northern part of the island. In front of the station, it used to be a water park covering thousands of acres, extending from the beach along the shallow sea to the edge of the deep sea. However, now, it has long been bombed into ruins, and a cargo ship is tilted in the shallows. The interlaced steel skeletons and wreckage have formed a wetland-like environment in the shallows. Algae and seaweed grow uncontrollably in the moist shadow. This is a paradise for scavengers and a hotbed for mutants to reproduce. Even experienced adventurers dare not easily set foot in that dangerous place. Even power armor can hardly stand up to the claws and thousands of sharp teeth of the mud crab. not to mention the other mutant creatures lurking in the shallow sea, whose attack methods are even more difficult to defend against due to the complex terrain. This is why this place is called the Beach of Despair, which makes everyone who sets foot here feel desperate. Li Wang's execution efficiency is very high. He started the construction of the defense line on the day he received the order. 100 engineering robots worked around the Beach of Despair and laid the foundation of the wall. At the same time, local survivors hired by the expeditionary force were working on the front line with a salary of 5 subcrystals per day. Not everyone has the money to live in the shelter, not to mention that the space in the shelter is limited. When the month of disaster comes, most people still choose to hide in the temporary shelters they made by hand and spend the months of terror with their families in fear. Although the arrival of the expeditionary force made them feel wary at first, after all, judging from their well-armed bodies, these people did not look like good people. But when these survivors saw them starting to build fortifications along the Beach of Despair, they completely changed their original ideas. Even though they did not think that these people could stop hundreds of thousands of mud crabs coming ashore to lay eggs, they still had a faint sense of luck in their hearts. If these people could drive the mud crabs back from the Beach of Despair, the disaster month that had plagued Daishu Island for more than 10 years would be completely eradicated. To be optimistic, if the mud crabs were hurt by the knack this year and failed to successfully lay eggs on Daishu Island, they might be forced to change their living habits next year and start migrating to other places. In this way, there would be one less season for these survivors to survive. Therefore, when the expeditionary force entered the survivor settlements around Taipei to recruit people, these survivors were very cooperative, at least not as uncooperative as before. On the other hand, Jiang Chen has already contacted the Fishbone base and transferred 1,000 people from the third corps to the expeditionary force. There are only 500 expeditionary soldiers stationed in Taipei. It is obviously unrealistic to fill the battle line of thousands of meters wide with this number of troops. If enough soldiers cannot be recruited from the locals, then reinforcement can only be drawn from Wanghei City. According to the plan put forward by the engineering squad of the Expeditionary Army, the total width of the battlefield is 5.1 kilometers. First, 52 5-meter high defense towers will be built along the edge, and then these 52 defense towers will be connected with 3-meter high and half-meter wide concrete walls. Sandbags are piled behind the concrete wall, and trenches and wooden stakes are set up in front to prevent mud crabs from advancing. A total of more than 1,400 workers are involved in the construction of the defense line. With the cooperation of engineering robots, there should be no problem in completing this defense line. With the arrival of a new batch of supplies, heavy machine guns were moved to the built wall, and the orange-yellow ammunition belts filled the ammunition boxes, dazzling like gold. Rockets were lined up in the open space of the expeditionary fortress, and the artillerymen skillfully installed the launchers, completing the deployment of the Fireball 1 system. When the survivors working on the front line saw this scene, they immediately dispelled their worries and became more motivated to work. With such powerful weapons, perhaps these people can really do it. Chapter 746 Mall Office. Unfortunately, on the 25th day, Taipei was hit by a heavy rain. The heavy rain washed the sand and soil into dirty mud. As the rain poured into the unfilled foundation, several engineering robots dropped anchor. Because the construction conditions were too simple, the progress of the project was extremely difficult and even came to a standstill. If this rain continues, we can only fight with mud crabs on the beach. Standing on the watchtower of the expeditionary fortress, looking at the construction site on the Beach of Despair, Li Wang frowned. But no one expected that the rain would be so heavy. When clearing out the water plant gang in Hangcheng, Jiang Chen had some impression of those difficult mud crabs. The shell that cannot be penetrated by bullets, the claws that can crush steel, and the delicious crab roe. But according to Qin Guangning, mud crabs are divided into river crabs and sea crabs. The shells of mud crabs living in the marine environment are darker, larger in size, and more ferocious in habits. Any creature smaller than it will become its prey. Without the protection of the wall, it would be unrealistic to fight these monsters in the wilderness. The heavy rain slowed down the progress of the project, and Jiang Chen had no better solution. If there was no chance of winning, he had to order an evacuation and wait until the summer solstice to move the space elevator. Jiang Chen could not do such a thing as letting his subordinates die for an impossible task. After taking a deep breath, Jiang Chen spoke. If we cannot complete 80% of the project by March 1st, then withdraw our people from the front line, retreat to the fortress, and evacuate in batches. What about the survivors? Li Wang asked. You don't need to ask me about this. Jiang Chen glanced at him and turned to leave the watchtower. If the expeditionary force evacuated, the fate of these survivors would be obvious. However, even if those survivors who did not have time to hide died tragically, he would still make such a choice. After all, compared with the lives of these strangers, he needs to be more responsible for the lives of his own people. Raindrops fell on the concrete road, and the sky above Taipei was shrouded in thick haze. The fear brought by the disaster month lingered in the hearts of every survivor of Yizhao, like a ghost that could not be shaken off. Entering the city from the north, passing through 2 streets and a station, you can see a settlement that looks like a shack. This town has no name, but is named Town Number 79 because of the number of the shelter. People built houses with bricks and billboards they picked up, living together in a crowded manner, trying to draw pitiful warmth from this doomsday. However, this warmth was so pale when danger came. Those who had saved enough subcrystals had already hidden in the shelters, while those who did not have subcrystals could only look at the numb guards with pleading eyes. Some people will survive, while others can only survive on their own in the disaster. Even an isolated island cannot escape this universal axiom in the doomsday. The guards standing guard at the door leaned against the shed, leaning on the dirty assault rifle, and looked around in a slightly irritable manner. They just glanced at the passers-by hurriedly and were too lazy to question them carefully. The island is short of resources and the economy is relatively closed. There are almost no looters who form settlements on Ijo Island. There are only some survivors who can't survive, and occasionally work as bandits. Inheriting the arsenal of shelter number 79, Town Number 79 has 500 fully armed soldiers stationed. It can be regarded as the largest survivor force in Taipei. Generally, it is impossible for bandits to come here and make trouble. In the heavy rain, a group of people wearing raincoats walked towards the town. The hoods of the raincoats covered the faces of the 3 people tightly, and they looked suspicious, no matter how they looked at them. However, the guards just took a look at the 3 people and looked away. After successfully passing through the gate of the town, Linling tucked her sleeves into her raincoat and muttered to herself, "Can't these sloppy guys make their houses cleaner? No matter how nice they are, it's useless." After the month of disaster, the only intact things here will probably be the eggs of mud crabs. Chen Guangning made full use of his role as a guide and introduced to Linling and Jiang Chen. Scavengers are very sensitive to human smells. Whenever the month of disaster comes, mud crabs will spontaneously move towards human settlements. Jiang Chen took a look at the surrounding buildings and did not comment too much on the living habits of these survivors. Judging from the scale, this town should be able to accommodate 5 or 6,000 people. However, at this moment, there were no people on the crooked streets. As Chen Guangning said, by this time, most people had fled to the shelter or fled outside the town. This time he came to Town Number 79 to inquire about the whereabouts of the nuclear power plant and to see what this town built on Ijo Island looks like. Li Wang was very opposed to him acting alone at first, but Jiang Chen insisted on doing so. There were too many people following him, so it was not convenient for him to carry the nuclear device to the present world. As for whether Chen Guangning was reliable, there was no need to worry about that. Whether people could lie or not, the slave chip would not lie. The 3 of them turned to alleys and came to the door of a bar. Chen Guangning walked to a broken door covered with moss, stretched out his hand, and knocked lightly 3 times. Not long after, the door opened. Under the shadow, an expressionless face appeared behind the door. It was a common face that could not be found in the crowd. If there was anything on this face that could leave a deep impression on people, it was probably his sharp eyes. He was obviously surprised to see Chen Guangning. Old Chen. His eyes stayed on Chen Guangling for a moment and then fell on the 2 people behind him. The man grinned. "You brought guests?" Feeling very uncomfortable with this look, the timid Linling shrank to Jiang Chen's side. Jiang Chen gently squeezed her hand, indicating that she didn't need to be nervous. That's right. I'll come to take care of your business for the first 5 days of the month of disaster. Do you think you can give me a discount? Chen Guangning said, spreading his hands. You know, I always charge a fixed price when you ask me to do something. As he said that, the man turned around and walked into the dim house. Welcome to my office. As long as the price is right, there is nothing I can't do on Yizhou Island. Credit guaranteed. After stepping into the door, Jiang Chen looked at the layout of the house. The first feeling was that it was cold and damp. The second feeling was that this place could really be lived in. Sit down, no tea is provided here. The man grinned and stared at Jiang Chen. His intuition told him that this person was his employer. Without taking off his raincoat, Jiang Chen sat casually on the old sofa and asked casually, "What's your name?" "You can call me Mole," Mole said with a smile. From his expression, he didn't really care that Jiang Chen wet his sofa. "I need you to help me find a place. Can you do it?" "It's easy, as long as you can afford the price." "Can you afford the price?" Jiang Chen laughed. It had been a long time since anyone asked him such an interesting question. Without asking the specific price, he paused and spoke directly. "Shimazu nuclear power plant. I want you to help me find its specific location and the password to obtain administrator privileges. How about it? Can you do it?" Recommend a book written by a friend. The Demon in the Stock Market. Chapter 747 Former PAC Intelligence Officer. Shimazu nuclear power plant. Mole's eyes narrowed. "Are there any problems?" Jiang Chen asked. "Of course not." He immediately shook his head upon hearing his employer's question and chuckled. "Respecting the privacy of customers is a basic law of our business. But I have to remind you that it's not an interesting place." Mole's statement made Jiang Chen smile. "Is there anything there?" "Rumors. Just rumors." Mole paused for a moment, kept the suspense going, and raised a finger. 10 subcrystals. Jiang Chen's eyebrows twitched, and Chen Guangning slapped the table and stood up. "You are simply extorting money." Jiang Chen raised his hand to stop Chen Guangning, who was about to step forward to argue with Mole, and threw out a thumb-sized subcrystal, which landed on the table with a bang. Mole's pupils shrank suddenly, and with his eyesight, he couldn't even see where the subcrystal was thrown from. When he looked at Jiang Chen again, he couldn't help but have some fear in his eyes. "Thank you, boss." With a wry smile, Mole took his hand back from his sleeve and reached out to pick up the dark green crystal on the table. He had been doing petty theft for many years, so he didn't need a quality tester. He could estimate the energy content of the crystal by rubbing his fingers on the surface of the crystal. Since he had already received the commission, it was time to get down to business. Mole turned and walked into the dark compartment. Not long after, he took out a map that looked a bit like a travel brochure. He spread the map on the table, and his dry fingers crossed several streets along the main road in the city center, and finally stopped at the forest between Taipei and the Northern Expedition Fortress, and gently pointed at the location where Datun Mountain was written. "Here, Datun Nature Park." Jiang Chen frowned slightly and looked at Mole. Reading the distrust in Jiang Chen's eyes, Mole smiled, and the wrinkles on his cheeks opened up into ravines. "I know you may have questions, such as how the nature park and the nuclear power plant are connected. You might as well think about why the Qingshu nuclear power plant can escape the doomsday nuclear war." Jiang Chen leaned on the sofa, looked at the rain outside the window that showed no sign of stopping, and said casually, "I don't have that much time to play riddles with you. You might as well tell me directly." Mole shrugged, no longer keeping the secret, and said directly at the request of his employer, "The Qingshu nuclear power plant is equipped with a deuterium refining device, and about hundreds of tons of solid deuterium as a strategic reserve of PAC. Its specific coordinates are kept secret as Class A secrets. It is precisely because of this that this nuclear power plant, which has never been started, has escaped NATO's nuclear missiles. But for me, this is not a secret. The password for administrator privileges is written on the back of this map, and the entrance is in Datun Nature Park. You haven't told me what's there." Jiang Chen said. "I almost forgot." The Mole slapped his head, laughed, and then said, "Hundreds of tons of deuterium and intact nuclear power plants. You are not the only ones who are paying attention to these things. 2 years ago, the ruler of this town also thought about restarting the Kingshu nuclear power plant. After all, there are hundreds of tons of deuterium, enough for this town to use for hundreds of years. However, the result is that none of the 100 people sent came back. At the end, the mole laughed, and there was indescribable cruelty in his smile. "What is there?" Jiang Chen asked. "Maybe mud crabs, maybe security machines guarding the nuclear power plant, or maybe something else. No one came back alive, and no one went to collect the bodies of those unlucky guys. If you are curious, you might as well ask the mayor of town number 79, but he is probably hiding in the shelter now," the mole said teasingly. The mole has already explained all the information he knows, and I'm afraid that asking again will not yield anything. After putting the map in his pocket, Jiang Chen stood up from the sofa. But before leaving, he looked at Mole and asked one last question. "The last question, how do you know all this?" "Me." Mole chattered. "It's not a good habit to pry into privacy." Jiang Chen raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, "As long as the price is right, that's what you said." Mole still raised a finger. 10 subcrystals? Jiang Chen smiled. 100. Mole said lightly. As soon as the voice fell, with a bang, a subcrystal the size of a baby's fist was thrown on the table. Mole's pupils shrank. This time he still didn't notice Jiang Chen's move, but he couldn't care so much anymore. All his attention was captured by the subcrystal. The dark green luster was like a night pearl in the dark room, and even Chen Guangning, who was standing next to him, swallowed his saliva. Greed gradually faded from his pupils, and the mole retracted his sight. His hand did not reach out for the subcrystal, but his eyes fell on Jiang Chen. His original intention was to make the Nazi employee retreat, but he did not expect that this wealthy employee really took out 100 subcrystals. He finally knew why Chen Guangning did not hide in the shelter or board the ship, but was working for the man in the raincoat. Someone who can throw out 100 subcrystals like throwing stones without even blinking an eye is definitely not just rich. What's wrong? Are you talking about 100 blood crystals? Jiang Chen smiled, tapping his finger on the armrest of the sofa. The mole shook his head and was silent for a long time before he slowly spoke. "For the former Pan-Asian Cooperation Class A intelligence officer, this is not a secret." Pan-Asian Cooperation Class A intelligence officer? Jiang Chen's pupils slightly enlarged with interest. "So that's it. If he is a PAC intelligence officer, then this Iju Island is no secret to him." Jiang Chen glanced at Chen Guangning, and with the little light left, he read similar surprise from his pupils. Obviously, he did not associate this mole with the former intelligence officer, but just regarded him as a simple intelligence dealer. "So, former Pan-Asia Cooperation intelligence officer, are you interested in working for me?" Jiang Chen said with a smile. The mole looked at Jiang Chen, but did not give an answer immediately, but spoke cautiously. "I'll think about it." Jiang Chen was not too surprised by the mole's answer. Unlike Chen Guangning, for the locals living on Yuzhou Island, the name of Nak is probably not much louder than that of the distant United District. If the intelligence officers of the former regime can be recruited, it will undoubtedly be a good thing for Nak. But if not, it is not a loss. So Jiang Chen just smiled and said casually, "If you think it over, you can come to the expedition fortress to find me." Leaving this sentence, Jiang Chen took Chen Guangning and Lin Ling, who had wanted to leave for a long time, and left the dark hut. Standing at the door of the dilapidated house, the mole watched the backs of the three people disappear into the depths of the rain alley. After a long time, he turned around and went back into the house. Chapter 748, Park in the Mist. The construction speed has been squeezed to the limit, but whether at least 80% of the project progress can be completed before March is still an unknown. In particular, the rain shows no sign of stopping, which casts a shadow on this battle that has not yet begun. 50 engineering robots just walked off the production line of the factory in the 6th block and were urgently transferred to Iju Island by the supply airship. Not only the hired survivors, but also some soldiers of the expeditionary force were involved in the project. Li Wang personally stood at the front line to supervise the construction. Although he knew that doing so might have more spiritual comfort than practical significance, he still did it. At this time, an adjutant walked up to him. There are survivors making trouble in the western construction section, and they are demanding to settle their wages. Li Wang said lightly without moving his eyelids. We said at the beginning that the wages will be paid after the project is completed. The adjutant hesitated, but still reported truthfully. They are afraid that the project will never be completed. Li Wang was silent for a moment and then spoke. Salaries will be paid on March 2nd. I don't care what method you use to suppress their emotions. Yes. The adjutant saluted. Li Wang knew very well that salaries must not be paid. As for the reason, it was not because NAC was short of this little money, but because once the money was paid, I'm afraid these people would not stay here to work, but would take the subcrystals and hide in the shelter. Even if salaries were to be paid, they had to wait until March 2nd, after the door of shelter number 79 was closed. At this moment, inside shelter number 79, a man in a PAC military uniform was standing at the door, squinting at the thin-faced survivors queuing to enter the shelter. He enjoyed this feeling, watching the poor people bow their heads, begging for his protection, and offering their only subcrystals with both hands. Yuan Yi, the mayor of town number 79, is also the director of shelter number 79. Limited by the awareness of the end of the world, in the rise and full history of many shelters, there are few precedents where blueskins can defeat the chaotic wasteland refugees and successfully establish a stable order in the shelter. Town number 79 is undoubtedly an exception. Long before the shelter gate was opened, the director of this shelter completed the transformation of shelter number 79 from freedom to centralized dictatorship. With sufficient arms reserves, almost all the men in the 2000 shelter members were recruited as soldiers by him. And at the first moment of the shelter opening, his attitude towards these wasteland refugees was not to assist, but to conquer. Obviously, he succeeded. Regardless of whether the means were extreme or not, shelter number 79 successfully survived the first year of the gate opening and has existed until now. Just as Yuan Yi was admiring the expressions on the faces of the survivors, his subordinates came over, gave an old-fashioned PAC military salute, and then spoke. Report to the director. The NAC expeditionary force working on the Despair Beach still shows no signs of evacuation. After hearing this news, Yuan Yi narrowed his eyes slightly. Every year in the month of disaster, he can harvest tens of thousands of subcrystals from these poor people who come to take refuge. The reason why town number 79 has been able to develop to its current scale is based on people's fear of the month of disaster. Unlike most survivors, as a vested interest in the month of disaster, he does not hope that the disaster will disappear. However, at this moment, he can't do anything blatantly. The strength shown by the NAC made him feel deeply daunted. Apart from anything else, just looking at the steel airship, he knew very clearly that the strength of the two sides was not at the same level. Yuan Yi crossed his arms and thought for a moment, and suddenly a sinister smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Let the survivors lurking in the labor force prepare to incite a collective strike before February 28th in the name of demanding wages. The subordinate's eyes lit up after hearing this, and he said immediately, Director, you are wise. Yuan Yi waved his hand and said with a smile, please tell them for me. If this is successful, they will definitely benefit. Yes. The subordinate nodded in response, but did not leave immediately. Why are you not leaving yet? Yuan Yi frowned and asked. I have something else to report. The subordinate lowered his head and said. What is it? Our scouts in Datan Mountain Natural Park found that someone tried to enter the park. Today is the 26th, and there are only 2 days left until the month of disaster. The heavy rain on Ijo Island has slowed down, but the dark clouds that cannot be dispersed are turning this horrible weather into a rainy and cloudy one. The muddy water was washed onto the road. Because no one has repaired it for a long time, the cracked rural road has become a dirty dirt road. Only after pushing away the mud 2 centimeters behind can you see the concrete road underneath. Wearing raincoats, a group of 3 people stood at the entrance of Datan Nature Park. Jiang Chen took off his hood and looked around. The dark forests on both sides made people feel uneasy, but after turning on the radio life detection device, no traces of alien activities were captured. From this perspective, this forest is as safe as it can be. But this is too abnormal. Jiang Chen couldn't help but frown slightly. It's not just humans who choose to take refuge in the month of disaster. Many alien species will also hide in caves or building ruins to avoid those crabs that eat everything. Seeing the confusion in Jiang Chen's eyes, Chen Guangning explained to him. I see. Jiang Chen nodded. I say, are we really going to go up? Looking at the road leading to Datun Nature Park, Linling's face was full of timidity. Seeing her trembling, Jiang Chen couldn't help but smile. This little girl is obviously a cyborg, but she is more timid than a human. Chen Guangning hesitated, and then said, I have the same opinion as Miss Lin. The mole said that there may be some bad things hidden here, so we'd better be cautious. In addition, do we really not need the help of the expeditionary force? More than 100 people sent by shelter number 79 were killed here, and we only have 3 people here. What's more, you are the Marshal of NAC. How can a large number of people follow you to transport nuclear devices and materials to the world? As for the danger, Jiang Chen is not very worried. As long as you put on the power armor, there is no possibility of being killed instantly. No matter what kind of danger he encounters, he can quickly get away from here. What's more, the high-tech equipment hidden in the storage space, if he smashed it out recklessly, he alone would have the combat power comparable to that of 100 people. You just wait here. And you, Linling, wait until you see my signal before coming up. After leaving this sentence, Jiang Chen didn't care about how Chen Guangning and Linling reacted. He showed the Ripper rifle under his raincoat and walked towards the foggy mountain road alone. Finally finished the exam. Failed 2 subjects. I drank a little with my classmates yesterday, and I feel a little dizzy. I wrote until 2 o'clock, but fell asleep on the keyboard. I'm sorry for the late update today. Let me rest for 2 days, and then explode in 2 days. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 749, Ghostly Shadows. The further they went, the thicker the fog in the mountains became. By the time they reached the middle of the mountain, visibility was less than 2 meters. Walking up the mountain on the muddy road, Jiang Chen threw away his raincoat, revealing the black mechanical exoskeleton underneath. As the tactical helmet fell, a light blue-like curtain spread on the screen, and everything in the field of vision gradually became clear. Although there was still a slight difference from daytime, it was no longer a hindrance. Jiang Chen opened the safety, loaded the rifle, and secretly raised his alert. Everything here was full of strangeness. In theory, rain and fog are difficult to appear at the same time, especially heavy rain. Passing through the heavy fog, Jiang Chen walked to the end of the road. It was a resort, but judging from the scale, no one would think it was a small town. The sign on the side of the road drooped, and rust mottled the emerald green surface. But Jiang Chen could still see a few lines of words from the remaining white paint. Destination: Datun Mountain Resort. Is this the place? Jiang Chen muttered as he opened the holographic map and confirmed the coordinates. The map that Mole gave him had been scanned into an electronic file by him, including the password to enter the underground nuclear power plant, which was also recorded in his watch. Directly in front of him, the foggy resort looked quite creepy, just like the haunted towns in horror movies. A word suddenly popped up in Jiang Chen's mind. Silent Hill? A closer look really did look a bit similar, but it was just a resemblance. As a staunch materialist fighter, Jiang Chen had never believed in gods, demons, or monsters since he was a child. Although this obviously abnormal town made his scalp numb, he still took a step forward along the dirt road. But at this moment, he suddenly felt like he was being watched. He turned his head back and raised the muzzle of his gun, but there was nothing there except a grey fog. An illusion? Jiang Chen muttered quietly, slowly lowering the muzzle of his rifle. The billboard of the resort had been tilted and stuck on the side of the road. The windows on both sides of the street were dark. If he had not confirmed that there was no one there through the radio life detection device, he would never dare to step into this street rashly. Ignoring these suspicious houses, Jiang Chen followed the path on the map and came directly to an abandoned hospital. When passing through the gate, he noticed that there were many luxury cars parked in the garage. It can be seen that this resort located in the natural park was very popular among the rich before the war. According to the information given to him by the mole, the entrance to the nuclear power plant is here. Standing at the door of the main building of the hospital, and hesitating for a moment, Jiang Chen took out the drone terminal from the storage space and deployed it at the door of the hospital. Although he had not seen any danger since entering the resort, the weird atmosphere made him dare not take it lightly. Dozens of hummingbird drones flew out of the drone terminal and explored the corners of the hospital. The orange-yellow light showed a beige halo under the mist. Although it still looked unpleasant, it was much better than the previous darkness. Holding a rifle, Jiang Chen stepped into the gate of the hospital. Accompanied by the drone, he carefully checked every corner. The hall was very dirty, chairs tilted on the ground, and documents were scattered everywhere. However, from this ordinary scene in the wasteland, Jiang Chen still found something unusual. It was too clean here, and there was not even a corpse. This was very abnormal. The war broke out very suddenly. For coastal areas like Izu Island, which are close to the front line, even if they were not targeted by NATO missiles, the time left for the locals to evacuate would definitely not be too much. And then he suddenly remembered that there were many cars parked in the hospital garage. This also shows from the side that when the war broke out, the people in the hospital did not leave at all. Thinking of this, Jiang Chen frowned slightly. But where did they go? Passing through the dark corridor, the humid air was filled with a strong smell of mold. Jiang Chen felt his nose a little better after turning on the filter on his tactical helmet. The entrance to the nuclear power plant was in the basement. However, as Jiang Chen got closer to the target, he became more nervous. So far, he still hadn't encountered a so-called danger. He certainly wouldn't be optimistic that today 5 years later would be different from before. If that was the case, why didn't the people from shelter number 79 come again? Nothing is more disturbing than the unknown. Pushing open the door to the basement, Jiang Chen threw a flare in with his backhand, raised his rifle, and stepped into the door, shaking the muzzle of the gun alertly around. Old medical equipment was piled up in a corner of the basement, and it looked like no one had been here for a long time. Slightly lowering the muzzle of the gun, Jiang Chen opened the holographic map, confirmed the specific location of the shelter entrance, and carefully approached the left wall of the basement. He reached up along the tiles, and stopped at the 7th tile from the left, and reached out and pressed it. As the mole had indicated on the back of the map, there was a mechanism hidden behind the tiles. A pale orange holographic screen emerged from the wall, and stopped in front of Jiang Chen. He reached out, and entered the password. The floor shook slightly, and the pile of medical equipment made a clanging sound, making way for a narrow path. Are we finally here? Jiang Chen breathed a sigh of relief, stretched out his hand, and tapped his watch, ready to call Linling up the mountain. Moving nuclear power facilities requires the guidance of Linling, an expert. If you mess around with the equipment inside, it may cause special situations. This is why he brought her to Izu Island. The holographic screen unfolded, but at this moment, his finger was frozen in midair. On the wall, he saw a shadow. It was a raised axe. Without the slightest hesitation, Jiang Chen suddenly jumped to the side, rolled on the spot, and took out the nitrogen shield and laser pistol from the storage space. The arm-long short axe was draped on the wall fiercely, splitting the tiles into pieces. Jiang Chen's pupils shrank. The figure was as ethereal as smoke, and the only entity that could be seen was the axe. Zizzy, the sound of electricity passed by his ears. After missing the attack, the figure moved quickly and swung the short axe in his hand fiercely towards Jiang Chen. The high-pressure airflow expanded instantly, bouncing the short axe to the side. At the same time, a dark blue laser bullet suddenly sprayed out, shooting out like raindrops, bringing the laser gun's short-range firepower advantage to its fullest. The laser bullet rain instantly covered the black shadow and all the evasive space near it. This shuttle of laser bullets hit the real place with at least 10 bullets. The shadow howled miserably, but still did not lose the ability to move. Taking advantage of the gap between the firepower, it leaped back suddenly, and its smoke-like figure immediately merged into the fog of the corridor. Jiang Chen immediately chased after it, and at the same time, the hummingbird drone also followed. However, when he stood in the corridor and turned on the life signal detection device, he unexpectedly discovered The light blue ripples swept across, but the screen was blank, and there was no trace of alien or human activities at all. A faint chill rose in his heart, and Jiang Chen frowned slightly. What on earth is that black shadow? Sorry, I had something to do yesterday, so I only wrote this one update. I'm very ashamed. As compensation, I will write at least 4 updates in the next 2 days. Here, Chengxing shamelessly asks for monthly votes. Readers who have votes implore you to vote for this book, please. Chapter 750 shimmers a nuclear power plant. Leaning against the side wall of the elevator, Jiang Chen quietly waited to descend to the bottom. The backup power system was still running. This elevator was probably the only power facility in the entire resort that was still functioning. The black shadow he had met in the basement before was still lingering in his mind. He did not ask Linling to go up the mountain, but chose to go into the nuclear power plant alone to explore the bottom. The attack of the black shadow was simply impossible to defend against. Even the life detection device could not find its trace. Jiang Chen really did not have the confidence to take care of a person who had no fighting power while protecting himself. Since he could be injured by a laser bullet, it could be ruled out that it was a ghost or something like that. But in the end, Jiang Chen still did not believe that there were such things as ghosts and monsters in this world. However, he still couldn't figure out what it was. Ding, his thoughts were interrupted by the elevator bell. Jiang Chen stood still and raised the rifle in his hand. The elevator slowly opened. However, what he did not expect was that this nuclear power plant was not alone. This is a Shimizu nuclear power plant. Put down your weapons, man. After the elevator opened, 6 riflemen stood at the door, with their gun muzzles pointed straight at him. Jiang Chen reacted immediately and aimed his rifle at them. Although one gun seemed weak against 6 guns, there were 10 hummingbird drones behind him. Give me a reason to put down my weapons, Jiang Chen said with a smile, with no intention of putting down his weapons. The underground signal was very poor, and the drone terminal deployed on the surface could not get in touch with the drone underground. However, there is something called a drone backpack in this world, which can be used as a temporary terminal for drones. Looking at the 10 buzzing drones, Zhao Xianyu, who was standing opposite Jiang Chen, felt his scalp tingling. Not to mention how many bullets the mechanical exoskeleton could withstand. The drones next to this man made him wonder how to deal with it. Okay, you can hold your weapons, but if you are not here to cause trouble, please explain your intentions. After weighing the pros and cons, Zhao Xianyu compromised. After all, to be able to walk here alive, he must be no ordinary person. Jiang Chen's eyes lingered on the rifles in their hands for a moment. They were all PK-2000s, although they looked very old. This type of pack standard automatic rifle is commonly seen in shelters or pre-war military facilities. Jiang Chen immediately understood the identities of these people. It seemed that the facts were not as the mole said. The more than 100 people who entered the resort to explore 5 years ago were not completely dead. At least, the 6 people standing in front of him were not dead. I'm a mercenary, hired by the director of shelter number 79, to investigate your cause of death. I just didn't expect that you are all still alive. In order to gain their trust, Jiang Chen lied. The 6 people looked at each other, and a bitter smile appeared on their faces at the same time. Are you all still alive? There are probably only about 20 alive. Zhao Xianyu put down the rifle in his hand, and the 5 subordinates standing next to him did the same. Since they had confirmed that they were their own people, there was no need to point guns at each other. Jiang Chen also put away his rifle, but did not put away the drone that was following him. So, can I come in? Jiang Chen pointed outside the elevator. Of course, let's go to our station to chat. Please follow me. Zhao Xianyu made a gesture of invitation. Behind the elevator was a hall with the words Shimizu nuclear power plant written on it. After passing through the hall, Zhao Xianyu came to an archway and pressed his fingerprint to open the nuclear power plant buried hundreds of meters below. Jiang Chen was surprised to find that this was not a nuclear power plant at all. It was simply a small shelter. Large and small tents were located in the empty room, and further back, you could see the workers' dormitories where people lived. Although the design of the Shimizu nuclear power plant is that it can operate on its own for at least 50 years without maintenance, it is still designed to accommodate 500 people. Although there are more than 500 people crowded here now, it is roughly estimated that there must be at least 1,000. These are the original inhabitants of the nuclear power plant. There should be no problem calling them that. Zhao Xianyu led Jiang Chen forward while introducing the situation here. From Zhao Xianyu's words, Jiang Chen immediately understood why he didn't see any remains in the resort, and there was no sign of the luxury cars in the garage leaving. It turned out that when the doomsday nuclear war broke out, those people did not flee to the shelter several kilometers away, but hid directly in the nuclear power plant nearby. It seems that when the nuclear war broke out, someone had a change of heart and did not keep the secret of the war reserve until the end, but took a large group of desperate survivors to hide in it. It turned out that these workers' dormitories were occupied by mud crabs. After we came, they cleared it out. After staying underground for a long time, even the most optimistic people will become depressed. These underground people are not easy to get along with, but they also need us to maintain order. If there is extra food, they will still share some with us. Food? Where do you get the food? Jiang Chen asked in confusion. Growing mushrooms, algae, and kelp. The environment here is very suitable for growing these things. Zhao Xianyu grinned. There is a pipeline connected to the sea and the deuterium refinery of the nuclear power plant. Not only can we get algae, but we can also get a few small fish occasionally. Growing mushrooms in a nuclear power plant is really a different kind of atmosphere. However, Jiang Chen did not complain about their food. He remained silent all the way. Only by talking less can he avoid revealing his true intentions. When they reached the end of the workers' dormitory, 2 guards were guarding the entrance at the corner. Judging from this posture, this should be the base of the exploration team of shelter number 79. After entering the so-called command room, Zhao Xianyu brought a chair for Jiang Chen. Sit down wherever you want. Jiang Chen sat on the chair and leaned his rifle against the side. Zhao Xianyu sat opposite him, crossed his fingers on the table, looked at Jiang Chen seriously and asked, "Is the fog demon still there? If you mean the black shadow with the axe, I think he should still be there," Jiang Chen said. A bitter smile appeared on Zhao Xianyu's face. "Really? Can you tell me how you escaped its pursuit? He attacked from behind. I found it, and then turned around and injured him." Although Jiang Chen said it so lightly, Zhao Xianyu still felt the danger described in his words. "Good guy, I didn't expect you to have some tricks. We had 117 brothers at the time, but only about 20 of them ran into here alive. If I'm not mistaken, the brothers who ran down the mountain must have died. Why are you so sure?" Jiang Chen asked with a smile. "It's easy to guess. If they returned to town number 79 alive, the director would definitely not have sent people to collect our bodies after so many years." Zhao Xianyu teased. "Now, what are you going to do?" After pondering for a moment, Jiang Chen spoke. "I'll take you back and take these people with me. It's inconvenient for him to move the nuclear fusion generators and nuclear fuels, because there are people staying in the nuclear power plant, and those who rely on nuclear energy for survival will definitely not allow him to move those generators. But if they can be taken out of here, I believe they will be happy to hand over this nuclear power plant with both hands. We can't get out." Zhao Xianyu shook his head. "There is a fog demon guarding outside, and no matter how many people go, they will die. The thick fog is his domain, and in his domain, we." "What exactly is the so-called fog demon?" Jiang Chen frowned. Hearing Jiang Chen ask this question, Zhao Xianyu couldn't help but sigh. It is said that he used to be a person in this Qingshu nuclear power plant. After a pause, he continued. "And he was the one who opened the door and let these poor people into the nuclear power plant." End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.